Our protagonist is a 18-year-old new transfer student. And the females want him. Yes, those are females. There are even normal-looking ones. But this one is obsessed with him. The entire school is just straight-up fuckery. He has classmates like this dove. Yes, that Viking-looking guy is a student. Even them, whatever they are. And this weird-looking dude, who you're gonna hate. Even the teachers are wild. Our boy with sheer luck becomes the top at his school. Against his will. He just wants to graduate and survive school. This is one of the funniest manhwas I ever read. Hope you enjoy. The classroom was bathed in the soft glow of sunlight, gently illuminating the desks as if wrapping them in a delicate linen dress. It was a scene that mirrored the quiet anticipation of the world outside, where spring had arrived, softly touching everything in its path. Ina glanced around, feeling the warmth of the season seep into her heart. Spring had come for her too, bringing with it a sense of renewal and possibility. A flush crept onto her cheeks as she thought about the new transfer student, Sung-hyun-ji. His presence made her feel things she had never felt before. Looking at him, she wondered if he felt the same way. Maybe, just maybe, things were better because of him. Sung-hyun-ji, the 18-year-old transfer student, turned his gaze back to her, a hint of curiosity in his eyes. Ina's face turned a shade of pink as she called out to her friend, Young One, unable to hide her excitement. Ina couldn't believe it. She had made eye contact with Sung-hyun. Young One noticed it too and teased her, saying that it was obvious he was interested in her. Ina's heart raced as she wondered if she should ask him out. The thought alone sent a flutter through her stomach. Young One encouraged her, telling her to go for it. The decision seemed obvious to her. A cold shiver ran down Sung-hyun's back as he felt the weight of their gazes on him. He had noticed Ina staring at him for what felt like a month. Her attention was both flattering and unnerving. Suddenly, a voice called out to him. It was Pigeon Man, a classmate who had a message for him. Pigeon Man told him that Ina had asked him to pass on a note. MC was shocked, his heart pounding in his chest. Dude is a literal pigeon. He couldn't believe it. Ina had asked to meet him after school. The thought sent a jolt through him. The letter in his hand felt heavy, a tangible proof of her interest in him. Without a second thought, Sung-hyun jumped out of his seat and rushed out of the classroom, leaving everyone in surprise. The teacher laughed, amused by the young man's urgency. He told the class to go get him, not caring what they did as long as he was breathing. The teacher's words were met with a mix of laughter and determination. The chase was on. Jangmi-cha, or man-woman because what the fuck, laughed as well. She saw this as the perfect chance to get physically affectionate with the new boy. She declared that the mission was hers, ready to claim Sung-hyun for herself. Ju Hee-gong, also known as Judy, stepped in, telling Jangmi-cha not to get ahead of herself. She needed to respect her elders, as Sung-hyun was hers. A brown-haired woman interjected, declaring that Sung-hyun belonged with her, not with the other ugly girls. Finally, a normal-looking person. She called upon her pet grizzly bear, Gam-soon, to back her up. A bear in the classroom? This is crazy. The pet bear suddenly uppercut her, sending her flying through the air. Bro, what? Jangmi-cha and Judy faced off, each refusing to back down. Suddenly, a voice called out, drawing everyone's attention. The room fell silent as all eyes turned to the source of the sound. As the room fell silent, all eyes turned to Ina, the self-proclaimed pretty good runner. She stood there, ready to prove herself, as if this was her moment to shine. The teacher, sensing her strong aura, couldn't help but chuckle. He appreciated her spirit and was intrigued by her confidence. It was clear that Ina had caught his attention. With a challenging smile, the teacher urged Ina to show them how fast she really was. Without hesitation, she accepted the challenge, ready to prove her worth. In a flash, Ina jumped out the window, leaving everyone in awe of her swift and unexpected move. The room was left in shock, wondering what had just happened. Suddenly, the protagonist saw her flying towards him. He barely had time to react as she approached with incredible speed. His heart raced as he braced himself for impact. With grace and precision, Ina landed right in front of him. Her sudden appearance left Sung-hyun-ji stunned and speechless. Ina, with a playful smile, mentioned that as soon as he got her memo, she knew she had to make her move. Her confidence was unshaken, and she seemed to enjoy the attention. She teased him, saying she didn't know he was the shy type. At least she's normal, right? Ina, seemingly unfazed by the chaos she had caused, assured him that it was okay. She would wait by his side until he felt comfortable. Her determination was both endearing and slightly unsettling. Never mind, she's deranged. The students, watching the scene unfold, couldn't believe what they were seeing. They whispered among themselves, wondering how Ina had made such a bold move. Some of the students were furious, their jealousy and anger boiling over. They shouted threats, some even vowing to take down Ina or Sung Hyun-ji. The school was wild, with students and even helicopters coming through the windows. It was a scene of pure chaos, and MC seemed to be at the center of it all. What kind of school is this? With a cold stare, Ina reminded everyone that they were in the middle of class. They needed to go back and focus on their studies. Her sudden seriousness caught everyone off guard. The students paused, realizing the weight of her words. The tension in the room shifted, and they knew she was right. It was time to get back to their studies. Reluctantly, they all went back to their seats, trying to focus on their studies. The excitement and drama of the moment had passed, but the memory of Ina's bold actions lingered in their minds. Ina, with a hint of vulnerability, admitted that it took a lot of courage for her to say what she did. She turned to Sung Hyun-ji, waiting for his response, wondering what he thought of her actions. Out of nowhere, Sung Hyun-ji shot at her, catching everyone by surprise. The sudden action left the room in shock, and Ina had to react quickly. With ease, Ina deflected his attack, showing her impressive skills. She stood there, unharmed and unfazed, ready to respond to his sudden aggression. What is going on? Ina, with a playful smile, teased Sung Hyun-ji about his unique way of expressing embarrassment. She found his actions cute, adding a touch of humor to the tense situation. Sung Hyun-ji, sweating and flustered, tried to respond but was at a loss for words. His heart raced as he struggled to keep up with Ina's bold and unpredictable actions. With a gentle but firm tap, Ina knocked Sung Hyun-ji out. Domestic violence is not the answer, folks. Sung Hyun-ji slowly opened his eyes, groggy and confused. He had no idea what had just happened or how Ina had managed to knock him out so easily. He found himself hanging tied up, helpless and at Ina's mercy. The students around him joked about the boy who ran away learning about smartphones in the 21st century. The school, once again, was filled with chaos and drama. Ina's bold actions had left a lasting impression, and no one knew what to expect from her next. The day was far from over, and the excitement was palpable. As the school buzzed with the aftermath of Ina's bold actions, the energy was far from settled. In the midst of the chaos, LeBron, ever the instigator, challenged anyone to a game, his confidence radiating as he called out for someone to step up. Sung Hyun-ji, however, wasn't feeling it. He declined the offer, his mind clearly elsewhere. LeBron, not one to push, simply accepted his response and moved on. Sung Hyun-ji couldn't help but reflect on where it all went wrong. His thoughts were a whirlwind of confusion and uncertainty. As he absently watched, his mind raced with questions about Ina Kim. Why was she after him? Why did she want to meet near the incinerator? The thoughts were unsettling, to say the least. Suddenly, a teacher's voice cut through his reverie, scolding them for playing basketball in the classroom. Before he could dwell further, Ina made her presence known in the most dramatic way possible. With a swift dunk, she humiliated LeBron, leaving everyone in awe of her skills. Imagine getting dunked on by a chick. Sung Hyun-ji looked at Ina, a mix of fear and curiosity in his eyes. Could he really escape from the monster she seemed to be? Their eyes locked, a silent exchange passing between them. It was a moment charged with tension and unspoken words. Ina broke the gaze, a faint blush crossing her cheeks as she popped the basketball, a playful smile on her lips. He reminded himself to stay calm, though his heart was racing. He stood up, trying to act as if nothing had happened, his mind racing with thoughts of escape, peep outside the window. But before he could make his move, he felt a presence behind him. Ina's friend was there, her voice cutting through his panic as she asked where he was going. Sung Hyun-ji was frightened, his mind scrambling for an excuse. She repeated her question, her tone firm and unyielding. He stammered, trying to find the right words. She, however, had other plans. She suggested he might be sick and offered a medicine for his supposed ailment. Sung Hyun-ji was taken aback, questioning how she could possibly have medicine on her. Before he could protest, she revealed a taser, calling it Darth Sidious, a weapon passed down from one class president to the next. She claimed it was the guardian angel of romantic comedy, a statement that left Sung Hyun-ji even more confused. Before he could comprehend what was happening, it was not looking good for him. As he faded, he muttered that he felt cured, thanks to her. His words laced with sarcasm and disbelief. Young one, with a smirk, declared the power of the taser, her voice echoing in his fading consciousness. As Sung Hyun-ji lay on the ground, Young one asked if he still wanted to quit school. Weakly, he replied no, thanking her in a daze. With that, he lost consciousness, his world fading to black as the chaos of the day finally overwhelmed him. Sometime later, Sung Hyun-ji opened his eyes, his vision blurry and his mind still reeling from the day's events. As his vision cleared, he found himself face to face with a person sporting a purple mohawk, a sight that only added to his confusion. He was dazed, his mind struggling to process the surreal scene before him. "Who are you?" he managed to ask, his voice weak and uncertain. The person before him had captivating eyes, a detail that Sung Hyun-ji couldn't help but notice even in his dazed state. His lips were a striking cherry color, glowing almost, adding to the surreal nature of the encounter. And then there was the mohawk, hard and spiked, resembling a dorsal fin. It was a look that was both intimidating and intriguing, leaving Sung Hyun-ji even more curious about the person before him. Sung Hyun-ji couldn't help but stare at the mohawk, a mix of curiosity and amusement playing on his face. This guy was definitely something else, unlike anyone he had ever met before. Without warning, Sung Hyun-ji suddenly decks the guy, his fist connecting with a solid thud. The mohawk staggered back, surprise flashing across his face. "I would have done exact same but faster." Sung Hyun-ji quickly apologized, explaining that the guy's face just made him want to punch him. The mohawk laughed it off, saying he moved another heart that day and considered himself irresistible. He revealed that he had seen Sung Hyun-ji on the classroom floor and carried him to the nurse's office. Sung Hyun-ji, taken aback, mentioned in his head he would be taking a shower 3 times when he got home. The mohawk told him there was no need to thank him and that he knew Sung Hyun-ji was like him the moment he saw him. Sung Hyun-ji, confused, asked why he was smearing him. The mohawk asked if Sung Hyun-ji wanted to escape from the school, hinting that he knew more than he let on. Sung Hyun-ji wondered how he knew, and the mohawk laughed, saying he could tell just by looking at his face. The mohawk continued, saying that all his attempts at escaping must have failed for one reason or another. Sung Hyun-ji admitted that they had and that he was going to quit school tomorrow. The mohawk laughed and guaranteed that he would fail. Sung Hyun-ji, frustrated, asked why he was cursing him again. The mohawk explained that when he tried to quit tomorrow, it would be revealed that he had already become their target. Sung Hyun-ji was taken aback, and the mohawk seemed almost impressed, saying he really didn't know anything. The mohawk revealed that every girl in their school had eyes on him and that he was already their target. Sung Hyun-ji was shocked and asked what kind of nonsense that was and how it could happen. The mohawk explained that it was easy because he was the most popular high school student. Sung Hyun-ji was taken aback, and a thought suddenly occurred to him. He recalled the strange students in the school, like the bird student and the old bearded student who somehow was a female student. Sung Hyun-ji couldn't help but feel that the mohawk made a compelling case, but it was also confusing. He couldn't believe what he was hearing, and mohawk seemed to enjoy his disbelief. Sung Hyun-ji felt a chill run down his spine. This was bad, really bad. He couldn't believe it, and the mohawk laughed, telling him to believe it. The mohawk offered to help him escape from the schoolgirl cartel that wanted him and told him to come find him whenever he needed him. As the mohawk walked away laughing, suddenly he was sent flying up, and a commotion erupted. A fight had broken out in Class 3. Sung Hyun-ji realized that Class 3 was his class, and the boss was Ina Kim. A standoff was happening, and Sung Hyun-ji felt a sense of dread wash over him. Pinky, a girl with a high-pitched voice, announced that Ina Kim was the strongest in their school and that there was a rumor going around that she was Sung Hyun-ji's girlfriend. Ina Kim, with an air of confidence, asked if that was what the rumor said and introduced herself as another name for death. She continued, saying she wasn't his girlfriend yet, but she would be soon. Sung Hyun-ji saw her and felt a wave of terror wash over him. He couldn't believe what he was hearing and wondered if he had any say in this. Still reeling from the conversation, he couldn't help but wonder if he had any say in this. Pinky, with a smirk, teased Ina about dating casually and saw her chance to be the first, but something was holding her back. With a sudden shift in her demeanor, Pinky decided it was a small problem that would go away if she got rid of her. She lunged forward, throwing a punch her way, declaring that she should just die. But Ina wasn't about to let that happen. With swift precision, she countered Pinky's attack, her movements fluid and calculated. The force of Ina's counter sent Pinky flying out the window, her body crashing through the glass and disappearing from view. Ina, unfazed by the interruption, turned to the others and asked if the next challenger could wait until tomorrow. She needed to go to the bathroom, a mundane concern amidst the chaos. She then turned to Young One and asked if she wanted to join her, a casual invitation that seemed out of place given the recent events. As they walked away, murmurs filled the room. People began to wonder just how many fights this made, the tension in the air palpable. But it wouldn't be so easy from now on. Apparently, even the student council was aware of this matter, and girls from other schools were also coming after the new student. It was crazy, but one thing was for sure. The strongest girl would have the new student. The stakes were high, and the competition was fierce. He couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and dread. As he stood there, the weight of the situation settled on his shoulders. The school was no longer just a place of learning, but a battleground for his affection. Rewinding the clock, 9 years into the past sets the stage for a tale of youth and rivalry. Muscle Elementary School, a place buzzing with the energy of young dreams and fierce competition. Amidst the schoolyard, a boisterous claim echoes as Jae-eun Kim, towering at 188 centimeters and 98 kilograms, declares her closeness to Sung-hyun. Her Greco-Roman wrestling base hints at a formidable presence. How is this kid? But Jae-eun Lee, slightly shorter but heavier at 182 centimeters and 105 kilograms, isn't having it. She fires back, asserting her own connection to Sung-hyun, her Brazilian jiu-jitsu base adding to the tension. Insults fly, and the rivalry heats up. She's got more muscles than me. What the fuck? Amidst the chaos, a small figure steps in. Sung-hyun Ji, a mere 8 years old but already a prodigy in science and social studies, tries to calm the storm. His petite frame belies a sharp mind, urging the girls to see reason. But the fiery tempers aren't so easily quelled. The command to stay out of it only adds fuel to the fire, the rivalry between Jae-eun and Jae-eun reaching a boiling point. She literally one-punched our boy. Impeccable form, honestly. Jae-eun's determination knows no bounds as she vows to crush anything standing in the way of her love for Sung-hyun, even if it means going against Sung-hyun himself. Crazy can't even describe this. Jae-eun, despite the rivalry, can't help but admire Jae-eun's passion. She acknowledges Jae-eun as a worthy opponent, a hint of respect amidst the chaos. With a challenge thrown and accepted, the two girls prepare to face off, their rivalry setting the stage for an epic showdown. He should have left to another country after that. Years later, the memories of that day linger. It's been a while since those childhood dreams and rivalries filled the mind, but the past has a way of resurfacing. Does this mean that the past will repeat itself? And damn, that's a big-ass cock. Unemployed and feeling like a test repeater, the weight of the past presses down. The desire to escape, to have the school collapse or the earth explode, speaks to the depth of the turmoil within. But even in the darkest thoughts, there's a glimmer of realization. The past can't be changed, but the future is still unwritten. A familiar voice breaks the silence, a greeting that's both warm and unsettling. The question of identity hangs in the air. Who the fuck is that guy? Oh, Pink Mohawk. Club applications start today, a fact that's both exciting and daunting. Our boy don't want nothing to do with this weirdo. The girls of the school are on the move, their determination to get him to join their club a force to be reckoned with. What the actual fuck is this? Remember, this is a dude. Only reaction that is only acceptable. Damn, how did they come so fast? That's what she said. They really just sealed a person alive in a coffin. And they're supposed to be medics, oh man. This school is anything but normal, and the teachers are nowhere to be found. As the tension reaches its peak, MC hears his name being called. MC questions, "Who are you?" But then, a frightened MC as the realization kicked in. This thing made an offer of chocolate, homemade and heartfelt, extended by a hopeful voice. The setting was none other than the vibrant Flo-UR Park, a hub of arts and sports. As sweet as the gesture is, my soul would have left my body. With a stammer, Sung-hyun accepted the sweet treat, his voice barely above a whisper as he expressed his gratitude. An invitation followed, an urge to join the baking club, the enthusiasm palpable. But Sung-hyun hesitated, his response a mumble of uncertainty and hesitation. The people here do not look normal at all. The attention then shifted to the bear, another offer of chocolate extended. But his response was far from expected. The bear had passed out, the chocolate seemingly laced with something sinister. Poison, perhaps, as people wondered. I don't think you're supposed to give animals chocolate. This school is literally a war zone. A grim thought crossed his mind, a sense of impending loss. He needed to act, to do something, anything to change his fate. A voice called out, addressing Mr. G, the tone serious and demanding. The principal's voice boomed, questioning the sudden decision to quit school. Is that supposed to be a man bun? A simple affirmation was given, followed by a confession. The academic stress was becoming unbearable, pushing him to the brink. The principal's response was cold, a stark reminder of the power he held. He couldn't stop him, but his words were a warning. Silence fell once more, the weight of the principal's words sinking in. The future was uncertain, the path ahead unclear. But then, a plea, a request to reconsider. This chick is absolutely insane. The words echoed, the truth of them sinking in. The future was uncertain, the path ahead unclear. The weight of the decision pressing down on him. He needed to choose to decide his fate. How can you get away from her? But then, a request to forget, to move on from the conversation. This is so top-tier stalking and fear-mongering. Another day, another victory. But the words that followed were a plea, a request not to leave, and if he did, to call the authorities. A desperate plea echoed, a cry for help. The situation was dire, the need for assistance clear. The future was uncertain, the path ahead unclear. A confession of distraction, the inability to focus on life. The danger was real, the need to act pressing. The pressure mounting. Pigeon Man, how does he write? A revelation was shared, a confession of a change of heart. The class president's voice echoed, gassing up Ina, the tension rising. The class president opinion was voiced, a high chance of affection. An invitation to join the craft club, the enthusiasm palpable. Ina warned, a reminder of competition. Pinky from the gardening club had her eyes set on him, the tension rising. The suggestion was made, a plan to kidnap. The idea was met with hesitation, the morality of it questioned. Our boy is doomed. The first-year teacher, Demi-im, stood before them, her presence a calming force amidst the chaos. She's basically like a substitute teacher, if you know what I mean. A sudden shout echoed through the room, calling out Sung-hyun's name. The room erupted into chaos as someone pointed out that Sung-hyun wasn't in a club yet, because he had transferred this year. The questions flew fast and furious, asking which club he was going to join. Sung-hyun hesitated, unsure of how to respond. Amidst the commotion, he piped up, suggesting they should listen to the teacher since they were in the middle of class. Laughter filled the room as someone agreed that they needed to listen to the teacher. But then, a stern voice cut through the laughter, warning against hitting someone else. The stern voice continued, stating that one can't win a man's heart by force. Another crazy chick, here we go. The voice added that one needed to go with the natural flow. The class focus shifted as someone whispered, wondering if it was her. The room buzzed with excitement as someone confirmed it was indeed her, and another voice chimed in, remarking on her beauty in person. The voice continued, explaining that this was why she had chosen to join the Wing Chun Club instead of theirs. Okay, nothing seems to be wrong with her. The revelation left everyone in shock, wondering what had just happened and who the mysterious bald figure was. What the fuck? I've been bamboozled. What kind of haircut is that? Sung-hyun was directly addressed by the bald figure, who asked if he wanted to learn Wing Chun with him. The bald chick waited for Sung-hyun's response. But Ina was not going to let that slide. I would have ran seeing this BS. A voice cut through the silence, addressing the bald chick with a hint of anger and disbelief. The voice accused the bald chick of being a dirty baldy, the tension in the room reaching its peak. The bald chick let out a laugh, acknowledging the hot-blooded nature of the young ones. The bald chick paused and weaved that shit. And instantly Mike Tyson the man-women. Damn, she has hella strength. The bald chick's gaze shifted. She dodged the shuriken. Why doesn't she just shave that bullshit off? Don't let this angle fool you, gentlemen. She grabs the neck. And boom, hits that swole chick with the Randy Orton special. Teeth start to fly. Damn, that sucks. I know he wants to off himself. Such a tragic world. Suddenly, the bald chick voice cut through the silence, stating that one can't win a man's heart by force. So even that bear wants our boy? Bestiality is no bueno. The bald chick dodges the bear's strike. Now I see why that's saying, if you ever see me in the forest with a bear, help the bear. Damn, the bald chick dropped everyone off. Then, out of nowhere, she said it was exactly what they expected from juniors. She continued, saying that Yaina was acting like a boss in their little group. She then added that she was at least better than Yaina, leaving everyone wondering how this would turn out. The tension was through the roof. See what I did there? The fight kicked off with a swift punch, setting the tone for what was about to unfold. But she was quick, dodging the incoming attack with a smooth sidestep, showing she wasn't going to be an easy target. Seizing the moment, a counterpunch was launched, catching the opponent off guard. A quick spit to the side, maybe a sign of determination or just a habit, but the fight was far from over. Ducking under another swing, she showed her agility and readiness to keep going. A brief step. Then a powerful kick was unleashed, the technique reminiscent of Wing Chun, showing her skills and training. But Yaina was ready, blocking the kick and showing her own prowess. The force of the kick sent chairs flying, the intensity of the fight ramping up. Damn, Baldy's strong. A laugh echoed, a sign of enjoyment or she's bats hit crazy. Look at the shiny head. The tension was rising, the fighters locked in a battle of wills, each trying to outdo the other. The crowd was amazed. The fighter's skills were on full display, and the opponent was no slouch either. Everyone was getting into the fight, the energy in the room electric. MC realized the stakes, knowing that if he got caught up in the moment, things could go south fast. He knew he had to get out of there, but not so fast. A voice called out, asking if MC was a junior, introducing Pearl Huang from the Beads Craft Club, adding a new layer to the situation. MC felt trapped, unable to go outside, wondering where the teachers were when he needed them. It seemed like the teachers were enjoying the spectacle, but how was that okay? Teachers watching like they at the movies, what the fuck? The principal realized he was in a tough spot, with teachers and others betting on the outcome, raising the stakes even higher. My money on Yaina. A sudden noise, a sign that things were about to get even more intense. A call to come closer, the tension rising as MC realized he was in the gardening club's domain. The Muscle High School garden, a place that seemed peaceful but held dangers of its own. Peep Simba. MC realizing he needed to get out of there before it was too late. A sigh of relief, he was alive, but it was too early to relax. The danger was far from over. The gardening club's domain, a place where they needed to tread carefully, the threat of the cannibalistic plant looming. The gardening club, a group that hid in nature, waiting for their prey, MC realizing they were the target. He questioned if the gardening club hunted humans, the reality of the situation sinking in. The truth was revealed. The gardening club hunted humans to feed their cannibalistic plant. MC an unsuspecting target. He knew he was in trouble. The gardening club was not an easy opponent, and the danger was closing in fast. Wasting time would only make them the prey of a cannibalistic plant. Too late, buddy. The owner of the forest was merciless, and MC knew he had to escape or face dire consequences. He should have ran as soon as he saw Pink Mohawk. He's not running fast enough. And of course he would trip. What are those? The fighter let out a cry of frustration and fear, realizing the gravity of the situation. The fighter groaned in pain, wondering what had just happened. It felt like a Trirut had appeared out of nowhere, catching him off guard. He realized that a Trirut had tackled him on purpose, leaving him vulnerable. A strong-ass figure spoke, telling him that he had entered their domain all alone. She continued, saying she knew MC wanted her too, and asked Siru what they thought. The gardening club members, Pinky and Siru, seemed to be in on this together. Pinky took his silence as a proposal, already planning a small wedding in her mind. Oh hell nah. MC was in shock, unable to comprehend the situation he was in. Emergency informed him that he was currently out of the service area, leaving him devastated. He tried to gather his thoughts, but his ass should have been running. There was something important he needed to say, but he struggled to spit it out. He finally managed to say that he liked boys, hoping it would make Pinky let go. He forgot to say pause. Pinky seemed unfazed by his confession, leaving him in a state of panic. She declared that she liked a good challenge, and his confession had only made her more determined. He realized he was in deep trouble, and Pinky was not going to let him go easily. Pinky ordered a Trirut to get the protagonist, and he knew he was screwed. Back to Yaina, she tried to think of a way out. She thought she saw Sung-hyun nearby, but she wasn't sure if it was just her imagination. Bald Chick warned her not to get distracted, but it was hard to focus on anything else. She was right. She couldn't afford to get distracted, because I think the principal bet everything on her. They duke it out like two cats scrapping. Despite the chaos, the people couldn't help but think that this was an amazing series of events, even if the monster couldn't win against a senior. Bald Chick tried to stay positive, hoping that somehow that she did damage. But as she looked around, she couldn't help but feel a sense of despair, whispering a soft no to herself. Her gaze swept across the desolate class. She absolutely didn't do shit. But there was no time to dwell on the emptiness. Yaina needed to this end and fast. Like a blur. She was already in front of Bald Chick's face. She punched and Bald Chick flew into the distance. She braced herself, crashing into the wall. The focus of other competitions, unwavering as they prepared for the confrontation. The principal stepped into the light, revealing a face that sent a jolt of glazing. He definitely bet everything on her. Yaina's gaze was steady, her voice calm but firm. She's about to work her. Her words were clear, a warning laced with concern. Bald Chick needed to leave, to return to her classroom before things took a turn for the worse. But she wasn't ready to back down. She had come too far, fought too hard. A single punch wasn't enough to make her yield. She began to explain the concept of rebounding, of athletes regaining their weight after extreme reductions to gain an advantage in power. Yaina listened, her confusion growing with each word. Why was this being brought up now in the heat of the moment? It seemed almost comical, like a bad joke at the wrong time. But Bald Chick's tone was serious, her intent clear. This was no joke. Damn, she's strong. How is this a female? From this moment on, she would fight seriously with the power of a rebounding flyweight heavyweight. She's literally Broly. It had been so long since she had truly unleashed her power, and the anticipation was intoxicating. A slow smile faded across Yaina's face. What the hell? The moment was here, and Broly lunged. With a huge boom, the class exploded. Back a few seconds. Yaina realizing.
Bald Broly.
And boom. But Yaina wasn't about to go down without a fight. In the perfect moment. In a blur of motion, Bald Chick landed a devastating blow. But it was Yaina's afterimage. With a fierce determination, Bald Chick charged forward. It was a close call, but she managed to dodge just in time. Yaina couldn't help but smirk. She had to admit Baldy was cute like a mole rat, in a fierce, powerful kind of way. Baldy raised an eyebrow, confused by her sudden change in demeanor. She straight Mike Tyson her ass out the window. The power dynamics were shifting, and they were excited. The principal hesitated, caught off guard by the question. Yeah, he deserves it, gambling like that. With a smirk, the loan shark made a bold declaration. He would escort the principal outside. The principal murmured in shock. The strongest girl in the school had been defeated with ease. But Baldy wasn't about to gloat. She leaped outside the window. Man, that's disgusting. A defeat was necessary to learn your place, to understand where you stood in the grand scheme of things. She groaned, struggling to sit up. She had been knocked out and it suited her. The Baldy offered a hand, helping Yaina to her feet. She had fought a good battle and she deserved respect for that. But as she stood, she couldn't help but feel a surge of annoyance. She had been defeated, yes, but she wasn't about to accept it graciously. The Baldy sighed, understanding her frustration. She had been there before, and she knew how hard it was to accept defeat. But she also knew that it wasn't because Yaina was weak. It was because she was too strong. She scoffed, not wanting to hear her excuses. She had been defeated, and that was all that mattered. But Yaina wasn't about to let the opponent's annoyance get to her. They had a battle to finish, and she wasn't about to let anything distract her from that. As she continued to protest, her patience wore thin. She was really starting to annoy her now, and she wasn't about to put up with it any longer. With a fierce determination, the Baldy made a promise. She would shut her mouth once and for all. But what happened next? Witnesses would later describe the fight as something straight out of a legend. It was an unbelievable sight, something that would leave anyone in awe. She took the monster's punch with her forehead, and didn't even flinch. Then, with a calmness that sent chills down everyone's spines, she gently placed her hand on the scalp of that bald monster. Confusion fell over the Baldy. Then the Baldy's face decided to get in the way of the ground. The bald girl, already defeated in spirit after that first clash, could only manage a weak groan. Her will to fight had vanished, crumbling under Yaina's sheer presence. That's when she asked her a question, her voice calm yet carrying the weight of a death sentence. Do you want to continue? The bald girl could only stammer, her voice barely a whisper. No, she didn't want to continue. She was done. Yaina's dominance was clear, her victory all certain. It doesn't matter, she continued, her words sealing the fate of the match. It was dazzling, a display of power and control that left everyone in awe. How can you scare a bear? It was a sight to behold, a moment that would be remembered for years to come. Look at that shiny head. The gardening club Amazon, a place of growth and nurturing, was about to witness a different kind of growth. Nari Seo, the 31-year-old ethics teacher in charge of the gardening club, stood tall and strong. Grow up tall and strong, she would often say, her words a testament to her beliefs. But today, those words would take on a new meaning. Finally, a normal-looking teacher. Wish she was my teacher. Oh, she said, her voice calm yet carrying a hint of challenge. Our boy running for his very existence. But the calm was about to be shattered. You uneducated degenerates. Nari's voice rang out, sharp and clear. How dare you stomp on life? Her words were a challenge, a call to arms that echoed in the silence. Ethics, fragmentation grenade, she said, her voice calm yet carrying the weight of her convictions. Never mind, she might be deranged. D. The word echoed in the silence, a command that seemed to shake the very ground they stood on. The gardening club Amazon was about to witness a showdown that would leave no one unchanged. As the tension reached its peak, Nari's voice echoed with a mix of betrayal and desperation, reminding everyone present about the bonds they once shared. An explosion from that pot. How? The quiet was abruptly shattered by a burst of laughter, manic and echoing. Pinky, the gardening club advisor, stepped forward with a smirk, her confidence seemingly unshaken by the chaos around her. Her laughter grated on everyone's nerves, her words a challenge that seemed to dance on the edge of sanity. She dared anyone to knock down her prized Sansevieria, a plant that seemed to hold more significance than anyone could fathom. But fine shit is stacked up with many pots. Nari's eyes narrowed, her gaze fixed on the Sansevieria. The plant seemed to disappear from the explosion. Was the plant dead? The question hung in the air, unanswered. The plant, the Sansevieria, seemed to not even feel any of that. Pinky's smirk widened, her eyes gleaming with a mix of amusement and something darker. She commented on the attack, her words laced with a humor that no one else seemed to share. With a sudden shift in her demeanor, she commanded her Sansevieria to get rid of Nari. The plant seemed to respond, its leaves rustling ominously. A scream echoed through the room, a stark contrast to the eerie calm that had settled just moments before. The room was filled with a mix of shock and disbelief. Nari's voice trembled as she struggled to comprehend the situation, her words a stark contrast to the confident demeanor she had shown earlier. The gardening club seems to crumble. The atmosphere was thick with whatever that stench breath was. Nari's breaths came in ragged gasps, her body trembling as she struggled to regain her composure. Pinky's laughter echoed through the room once again, a stark contrast to the tension that had settled just moments before. She seemed almost refreshed, her words a chilling reminder of the madness that had unfolded. Her laughter trailed off, leaving a heavy silence in its wake. MC a mix of shock and disbelief. She literally attacked her teacher. He continued, a mix of fear and desperation evident in their words. He needed to escape, to call for help, but the thought of what awaited him outside was almost as terrifying as what was unfolding within the room. Pinky's voice cut through the tension, echoing through the room with a sense of finality. Top 10 jump scare. Our boy sweating like he working out. He continued, a mix of amusement and something darker evident in his words. He greeted Pinky, his tone a chilling reminder of the madness that had unfolded. He mentioned something he wanted to give. Brother, just put yourself out of your misery. Ik where that sword came from, but excellent work. Of course the plant would easily block. And somehow it can fold metal. Wow, just wow, that's impressive. Pinky commented on the situation, her tone a chilling reminder of the madness that had unfolded. The Sansevieria rustled ominously, as if in agreement with her words. As her chilling words lingered, the atmosphere shifted abruptly. Can someone call the dentist? A sudden cry echoed, filled with a mix of fear and pain. Silence then fell. Confusion and uncertainty hung in the air. MC had to check if he's still alive. Death would have been better, not gonna lie. Pinky shouting in concern about the Sansevieria, as if noticing something was terribly wrong with it. Then Pinky got pimp-slapped by the plant. Pinky chimed in, expressing shock and confusion, asking what was wrong, as if trying to make sense of the situation. The atmosphere was thick with tension and uncertainty. Into the mind of a plant. A question was thrown out, asking if another plant had been brought in, and why bother since they always end up dead. The tone was accusatory, as if this was a recurring issue. A defensive response came quickly, insisting that this time would be different, that this plant would survive. In an attempt to change the subject, he mentioned bringing pork rice soup to share, trying to lighten the mood. But the response was dramatic, with the plant thinking it was dying, as if the situation was too much to handle. The temperature was mentioned, comparing it to the Sahara Desert, as if it was unbearably hot. The discomfort was palpable, with it pleading to be killed already, as if the heat was too much to bear. The freaky ass hell. MC's sudden declaration was made, announcing that they would be friends. The plant cried of fear echoed, as if it was truly scared of what was about to happen. It spiraled out of control. Pinky's frustrated exclamation followed, as if she was realizing that things were not going as planned. A nervous question was asked, wondering if he would get to live, as if the stakes had suddenly become very real. A resigned statement followed, suggesting that there was no choice but to proceed, as if accepting a grim fate. Pinky's determined declaration was made, stating that she would have to do it herself, as if taking matters into her own hands. A quiet remark followed, noting that it had been a while. A sudden plea was made, calling out to Pinky, as if trying to stop something from happening. But the response was sharp, telling him to be quiet, as if his words were no longer welcome. A harsh statement followed, saying that he could no longer use his tongue. Another stern remark was made, saying that his tongue could only be used in bed, as if setting strict boundaries. Oh hell nah. A desperate plea was made, asking to be saved, but then quickly changing to asking to be killed, as if the situation was too much to bear. The desperate plea hung in the air, but the response was anything but comforting. The back and forth of desperation continued, a mix of pleading for salvation and then suddenly wishing for an end. It was a roller coaster of emotions, each word more conflicting than the last. It was a brief moment of levity in an otherwise intense situation. The forest setting brought back memories of a first encounter, a moment that seemed to have left a lasting impression. A month ago, life was simpler, filled with everyday tasks like gardening. How is this even the same Pinky? That was when they first met, a moment that seemed to have changed everything. The memory was bittersweet, filled with both joy and regret. A sigh of frustration escaped, followed by a question that seemed to sum up the confusion of the moment. Why was there a forest at school? It was a question that seemed to have no answer. A brief exchange about directions to the main building followed. It was a mundane interaction, but it provided a moment of normalcy in the otherwise chaotic situation. A polite thank you and a wish for a nice day ended the interaction. It was a small gesture, but it carried a sense of finality. The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken words and unresolved feelings. From the moment they first saw each other, there was a spark, a desire to be together. Yeah, she's also another delusional. The decision to become a better fit for each other was made, a promise to change and grow together. So steroids, huh? The journey was not easy, filled with moments of doubt and uncertainty, but the promise to keep going, to not give up, was a beacon of hope. The struggle was real, but the determination to overcome it was stronger. It was a testament to their love and commitment. There were moments of weakness, times when giving up seemed like the easiest option, but she persevered, driven by their love for each other. And in the end, all the struggles and sacrifices led to a transformation. The journey had changed her, shaped her into better versions of herself. This is what's called a glow down. They had become the perfect fit for each other, a testament to her love and commitment. It was a journey worth every struggle and sacrifice. MC's warning to keep distance was met with curiosity and concern. The shyness and inexperience were evident, but so was the genuine care and affection. Even the shy and inexperienced side was endearing, a part of him that drove her crazy in the best way possible. The confession of being driven crazy was met with a moment of panic. Yikes. The declaration of not being able to be her boyfriend was met with a question that cut deep. Was it because he no longer wanted to live? That is one scary-ass face. I might have nightmares. MC trying to find words to get out of this situation. MC heartbreaking admission following the realization that betraying a friend for love was impossible. His loyalty was unshakable, almost too perfect, leaving others to wonder how someone could be so steadfast. The tension was cut short, a plea to stop, though the curiosity about him only grew stronger. Pinky hint of playful teasing, wondering if he was trying to make a move. If that was the intention, it worked, sparking a fire that couldn't be ignored. He just made it worse. A sigh escaped, MC looking. Suddenly, a shift in focus, the principal appeared, and the mood turned to surprise. A brief pause, a moment of hesitation, before the urgency returned. The advice was clear: just run, get out as fast as possible. The plan was set: escape the forest, call for help, and then figure out the rest. A brief pause, the weight of the situation sinking in. Pinky teasing remark broke the silence, calling him cute but warning against pushing too far. The warning was clear: keep calling him trouble, and things might get heated. The advice shifted to something simpler: get some sleep, though the frustration was evident. The baldy head chin checks Pinky. His prayers finally answered. Look at that craziness. The pause continued, the moment feeling almost frozen in time. The quiet persisted, the atmosphere thick with unspoken thoughts. Confusion set in, the question echoing what just happened. The direction was confirmed. Someone spotted lying on the ground, the urgency rising. A gasp followed. The realization hitting hard: was she okay? The shock grew. The beautiful girl from the province was down, and the president of the gardening club too. The situation was dire, the question hanging: what had gone wrong? The thought lingered, the possibility terrifying: could it be what they feared? The lingering thought of what they feared seemed to hang in the air, unspoken yet heavy with implication. Suddenly, they erupted with disbelief. The new student had done something incredible, and no one could wrap their heads around it. The shock was palpable, like finding out your grandma was a secret agent. But the new student denied it, insisting he had done nothing. The room buzzed with confusion, like a group chat blowing up with conflicting messages. A groan echoed through the room, a sound of frustration and disbelief. It was clear that whatever had happened, it was big. Pinky admitted defeat, confessing she hadn't even seen the final attack coming. It was a moment of shocking revelation, like finding out your crush actually likes you back. She acknowledged the new student's strength, realizing why Ina Kim had chosen him. With a promise to return stronger, she left, leaving everyone in awe. The room was buzzing with excitement, like a hype squad after a major win. Amidst the chaos, some were left scratching their heads, wondering what on earth everyone was talking about. It was like being the only one not in on the latest meme. Suddenly, a shout cut through the confusion. Someone had spotted something incredible. Sansevieria and the animals were coming together, a sight that left everyone in awe. It was like watching a viral video come to life. The realization hit the transfer student was now the new gardening club president. The room erupted in cheers, like a crowd celebrating a major plot twist. Admiration filled the air, with some even jokingly asking the new president to be their boyfriend. It was a moment of triumph and excitement. He done got himself into some deeper shit. As the excitement settled, a new scene began to unfold. Yaina called out for Sung-hyun, her voice echoing through the room. A surprised response came, filled with curiosity and a hint of anticipation. A shout of surprise echoed through the room, drawing everyone's attention. The gardening club was about to witness something incredible, leaving everyone on the edge of their seats. A moment of suspense before the next big reveal. The next day arrived, bringing with it new challenges and surprises. The atmosphere was charged with anticipation. The craft club president challenged Yaina, asking if she was ready to quit. Yaina prepared for a fight, ready to face whatever came her way. She called out, her voice filled with arrogance and challenge.
Smooth pose.
But just like that she was no match. Yaina called out for Young One, and boom, like a sidekick she always arrives. To the garden club. Application being filled. Yaina then presented her application, a moment of surprise and excitement. Yam's soul just left his body. His voice cut through, apologizing but claiming they were at full capacity. Silence hung in the air. Miss Seo tried to lighten the mood, asking if Ina wanted to listen to music for a moment. It was like that one friend who always suggests a vibe check when things get too real. But the tension wasn't ready to dissipate just yet. Accusations flew, Miss Seo calling out the full capacity excuse as a lie. The piece was short-lived, and our boy gets two-pieced with a pot. Amidst the chaos, a song started playing, and Yaina noted how good it was. It was almost comical, like a random playlist shuffle trying to set the mood. Then, the question arose, was Sung-hyun sleeping? And the answer came yes, he was tired. Shifting gears, Miss Seo brought up the gardening club, mentioning they had just gotten a spot. A sigh echoed through the room, heavy with unspoken thoughts. It was the kind of sigh that carried the weight of 1,000 memes. A universal sound of, what just happened here? Another application for the garden club filled. Damn, our boy got hell emotion. Then, a quiet confession, someone couldn't muster up the courage to give it to him. The name Ah-young Choi flashed, leaving everyone wondering what was about to unfold next. She low-key heat. As the name Ah-young Choi lingered in the air, whispers began to spread like wildfire. The name of the gardening club president echoed through the halls, leaving everyone curious and slightly on edge. Rumors started flying about how he had knocked out Pinky with a single blow. Even the most beautiful girl in the province, IP-man, had been defeated by him. The students couldn't believe their ears. But it wasn't just IP-man. Ina, another formidable figure, had also been defeated. The news was so shocking that it left everyone in disbelief, wondering if that was why she had joined the gardening club. The whispers grew darker, with some even saying he fed people to hamsters. The fear and curiosity about him grew, with some even wondering what he was like in bed. The atmosphere was thick with tension and intrigue. Amidst the chaos, a quiet moment of reflection. The weight of the rumors and the fear in the air was palpable. Mohawk cut through the tension, trying to calm the storm. It was clear that the intentions were not to harm, but to help. Things hadn't gone as planned, and the confession that followed was one of regret. The admission of not meaning to cause harm was a plea for understanding, a cry for mercy. The plea continued, a desperate cry to not be killed. The response was one of disbelief and fear. The confession of not trying to harm was met with skepticism. The fear for one's life was real and palpable. The fear was justified, with new muscular monsters coming to challenge during breaks, declaring he was going to be the school boss. Did a panther really just hand a plant a torch? They roasting him like barbecue. Sheesh. A glimmer of hope in the darkness, a perfect chance to escape just around the corner. The promise of a way out, a chance to flee from the terror. The perfect chance was met with skepticism, the threat of torture looming large. The mention of an upcoming field trip added another layer of complexity to the situation. The destination was Gyeongju, a name that sent shivers down the spine. The city of speed racing and notorious biker gangs, a lawless place where speed was power. The city's reputation was terrifying, with graves of those who died racing all over town. Gyeongju, a name that meant race, a city where people disappeared all the time but no one cared. The city was so evil that they even used the graves to attract tourists. The danger was a constant companion, and the fear was a shadow that never left. The plan to escape was extreme, involving stowing away on a smuggler's ship to another country. The thought of stowing away was met with a mix of fear and determination. The plan was set in motion, with the hope of escaping the terror that had become a part of life. A moment of quiet reflection. Would you have put him to the stakes like a witch too? The plan was set in motion, with the hope of escaping the terror that had become a part of his life. Even that might not be enough to run away from the school. Starting with memorizing hiragana, the first step towards a new life, a new beginning. A young thought of Sunghyun running away to another country was met with disbelief. The hope for a peaceful and well family was a driving force, a beacon of light in the darkness. The introduction of Ha-young-i, the French teacher for the day, added another layer of complexity to the situation. The revelation of being the Incheon anti-trade leader was a shock, a twist in the tale. The confession of hanging the real French teacher upside down at the gym storage was met with disbelief. The revenge for what they did in 1866 was a driving force. America baby. But the mood shifted abruptly as supposedly teacher boomed through the room, asking if anyone was studying Catholicism. A confused response came, mistaking it for calculus, and then a proud declaration of being the grand prize winner of a math competition. The math whiz was suddenly labeled a traitor Catholic, and damn, that's a good punch. The room fell silent for a moment, everyone thinking the same thing: they're insane. Not a single day passed peacefully in this place. The tension escalated as someone accused the math champion of being a spy planted by foreign intruders, demanding they confess. But the accused just shrugged it off, saying it didn't matter anymore. With a smirk, MC dropped a bombshell: he wouldn't be in this country after a week. Yaina found the whole situation cute, laughing it off like it was some kind of joke. These chicks read minds? The tension broke slightly as he commented that snacks were tastier when eaten during class in secret. MC is a terrible liar. The focus shifted as she noticed a drawing, reminiscing about how she used to enjoy drawing when she was young. Surprise filled the room as he asked if she really actually liked drawing. She confessed that she wanted to become an illustrator, a dream she had to give up because her parents were against it. MC noted that she was better at drawing than he expected. As he looked at her, he saw a different side to her, a side filled with untapped potential. Don't fall for it. She's like the girl from Obsession. The moment passed, and she announced she was all done. But then he blurted out, questioning her own sanity. He called her a monster who draws on the desk with her fingernails, wondering what she was thinking. The room erupted in chaos as the teacher demanded that her return to her seat, accusing her of being a radical reformist. She quickly complied, saying she was returning to her seat. This man is losing it. Time passed, and the day of the field trip finally arrived. The teacher warned everyone to stay with the group and not act on their own. Someone laughed, saying they could smell an exciting adventure. Suddenly, a scream echoed through the air as someone fell. Everyone gasped, but it was quickly noted that it only scraped her shoulder. The teacher warned that they might not be as lucky, the warning hanging in the air like a dark cloud. This school is insane. The teacher urged everyone to try their best so nothing bad would happen during the field trip. MC muttered under his breath, calling the teacher the worst thing happening there. The teacher's warning still hung in the air, but the focus had shifted. The first step of the escape plan was set in motion, and the ethics teacher overseeing the trip had to be dealt with. A nervous gulp echoed the tension in the room. Silence fell as the plan began to unfold. Smart move, my boy. His voice crackled through, announcing his arrival at the entrance of Bulguksa Temple in Gyeongju. The tension spiked as he revealed that the teacher had shot a student with a gun. The call to arrest her rang out, the urgency in the voice clear. The situation was spiraling out of control. The question of what was left now lingered in the air, the protagonist realizing he had to act fast. The only option left was running away from the two most dangerous people in the school, using every trick he had up his sleeves. She turns to him. Never make eye contact, fellas. She called out for Sunghyun, the urgency clear. They needed to find him and ask him something crucial. The plan was set: play along and wait for the perfect moment to escape. Failure wasn't an option, it would mean the end. Their voice echoed again, confirming that Sunghyun had been called, and he came running. Doubt crept in as he wondered if the plan would actually work. A pause hung in the air. The question of whether Sung-hyun would be alone throughout the trip was raised. The answer came swiftly: yes, you can trust me. The instructions were clear: find Sung-hyun and ask him what they needed to know. A bizarre offer was made: if she was wrong, he would receive a pair of socks worn for an entire week. The response was swift and grossed out: I don't need them. The insistence that they were quite valuable only added to the awkwardness. The tension broke as she declared her intent to beat someone up and shave the little hair he had left. The information was thanked, and a laugh echoed in response. He trailed off, hinting at one more thing he wanted to do. The moment to be brave had arrived. A plea echoed through the air: wait for me, Sung-hyun. The urgency and emotion in her was palpable. Yup, another deranged person. But the moment was interrupted as a voice boomed, introducing the principal statue of Sakyamune in Sukagoram, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The guide, Demi, now a little more experienced with students, began her explanation. But the students weren't having it. One of them groaned in frustration, clearly not interested in the historical lesson. The student chimed in, questioning if they were really there for a children's history trip. The boredom was evident as she dismissed the explanations as unnecessary. The student, particularly uninterested, declared that she didn't care about some lame Buddha statue. Her mind was set on going downtown and getting drunk instead. The disinterest and lack of enthusiasm from the students hung heavily in the air. But even Buddha had enough on the nonsense. The Buddha couldn't help but feel disappointed at the lack of historical awareness among the young people. Determined to make a difference, the Buddha called everyone to follow. He was going to teach them about real history, whether they liked it or not. He started with the fall of Beech in the year 660, but his voice was too small and the students complained. He continued, mentioning the fall of Goguryeo in the year 668. A loud cry echoed through the air, and the Buddha, mistaking it for emotion, demanded 10 more reps of whatever they were doing. He pressed on, explaining the unification of the three kingdoms in the year 676. Yaina muttered under her breath, glad that they had fled in advance, clearly not interested in the historical lesson. Her friend, noticing the disinterest, paused and questioned if anyone was even listening. She realized that she couldn't find MC. The other, confused, questioned what was going on. The tension rose as the group realized someone was missing. The historical tour was quickly turning into a search party. The scene shifted as the protagonist tried to figure out what to do next. Now alone, he decided to take a break and grabbed a drink. The vendor asked for $5, and he handed over the money. He pondered his next move. He wondered if he should just keep walking until he reached the coast. As he walked, he noticed the lack of bus stops and the abundance of graves. He couldn't help but wonder if people even lived in this area. He recalled stories of people disappearing in the city, but no one seemed to care. It added to his unease as he continued. Suddenly, a voice called out, asking if he was Sung-hyun in second year. The protagonist, confused, turned to see who it was. He asked who the person was, trying to figure out if they were friend or foe. The stranger paused, sizing up the student. Young noted that the seemed lost. It was a statement that hit too close to home, and now he was in some shit again. He asked how high the student was, and the student, confused, responded that she was in first year. Young, now seemingly more interested, asked MC to follow her. Still hesitant, MC stumbled over his words, unsure if he should follow the stranger. The stranger, sensing the hesitation, offered her help once more, assuring him they could find the missing person together. MC, still wary but desperate, decided to give her a chance. As they started walking, MC couldn't help but blurt out his concern, asking if the stranger was going to turn into a muscular monster. The stranger was taken aback, wondering where that question came from. The stranger ignored the question and pointed straight ahead, indicating a port in the distance. He followed the stranger's gaze, seeing the port and wondering how she knew the way so well. She explained that she had lived there when she was young, which made him see even more curious about her past. She continued, saying she had sneaked out to visit her family but ended up running into him instead. MC pondered her words, trying to make sense of the situation. The protagonist seemed to be sizing up the student, muttering to himself that she was a little cute. He then asked if someone was waiting for her. She revealed that she had been watching MC for a long time, which sent a chill down his spine. He was taken aback, wondering what she meant by that. An awkward silence fell between them as she grabbed him. She broke the silence, asking if he had a girlfriend. That's awfully close. He was caught off guard by the question, stammering that he didn't have a girlfriend and asking why she was asking. He thought to himself, surprised that there was a normal girl who wasn't bald or monstrously muscular in his school, and she was showing interest in him. He tried to think rationally, realizing that if he let his emotions take over and returned to school, not only would he be in danger, but the girl would become a target of the muscular monsters too. He admitted that he wasn't ready to date someone, given the current situation. He explained that it wasn't because he didn't like the girl, but he was in a difficult situation and hoped she would understand. She asked if it was because of Ina, mentioning her full name, Ina Kim. He was taken aback, wondering how she knew about Ina. Yaina told him to meet her near the incinerator during lunch. Yikes, she was trying to kill bro. He hesitantly agreed, admitting that Ina was indeed the biggest reason for his hesitation. She seemed to know more than he let on, simply saying she knew it. She laughed, and a whip sound came out of nowhere. Suddenly, a group of bikers appeared, asking if the student was from the city. The student was taken aback by the sudden appearance of the bikers. The bikers introduced themselves as part of the Gyeongju biker gang, with one of them, Chunchu Kim, offering to give the student a full tour of Gyeongju world. The bikers bombarded the student with questions, asking if they had barley bread in their town and if they knew that the name of Anapji Pond had changed to Donggung Palace and Woolji Pond. The protagonist was overwhelmed by the bikers' enthusiasm, wondering if they were the infamous Gyeongju biker gang members he had heard about. Another biker quickly hushed him, reminding everyone to be polite, given Young importance. The group seemed to respect her, their tone shifting to one of reverence as they acknowledged her significance. Young, seemingly amused by the situation, asked if he was wondering how well she knew Gyeongju. With a confident smile, she continued, stating it was only natural that she knew Gyeongju so well. She revealed that she was born and raised on the roads of Gyeongju, which explained her deep connection to the place. The bikers listened intently, their respect for her growing with each word. Young, now seemingly in a lighter mood, joked about being the queen of the roads, adding a touch of humor to the tense situation. She then pointed to a car, explaining it was her favorite, a vehicle that ran on people's dedication which she found incredibly cool. She then gestured to the bikers, mentioning they were people who had lost to her in races, further establishing her dominance. Turning to MC, she mused that it would be a waste to use him as a wheel, suggesting he would make a better cat instead, and asked for his thoughts on the matter. She sweetened the deal by offering to buy him pads and snacks, leaving the protagonist confused about what pads had to do with anything. She then asked what he thought about the idea and proposed a race, giving him a chance to prove himself. However, she quickly added that just because she was asking nicely didn't mean he had a choice, hinting at the consequences of refusal. MC, feeling the pressure, asked if she would let him go if he won the race. She laughed and agreed, but with a twist. She would only let him go if he managed to win against her, a feat that seemed nearly impossible given her reputation. She explained that racing was her reason for being, enjoying the sight of people struggling to make their false hopes come true, adding a psychological edge to the challenge. MC, seeing no other option, agreed to the race and asked which vehicle he could ride. She offered their electric scooter, commenting on the unusual friendliness of city people. He, now committed to the race, prepared himself mentally for the challenge ahead. The biker, with a mischievous smile, almost forgot to mention that the scooter had a self-destruct function, warning him against any funny business or it would blow up. MC, now fully aware of the stakes, took a deep breath, preparing for the race of his life. The biker told them to get ready, leaving MC to wonder what he had done to deserve this situation. With a shout of "Start!" the race began. The protagonist, resigned to his fate, thought about his limited options and focused on the road ahead. The scooter hummed to life, and he gripped the handles tightly, determined to give it his all. She watched closely, a smirk on her face, as they sped off, the race now in full swing. Bro just can't get a break. The race kicked off with a burst of energy as the starting signal echoed. The race was on, and MC pushed forward, determined to prove himself. His thoughts raced as fast as his feet. He couldn't believe the speed of Young, realizing she was not just bald perverts but formidable opponent. He was shocked to see the palanquin keeping pace with an electric scooter at full speed. MC couldn't help but wonder how the palanquin was so fast, questioning if it was even possible. Young recalled that a person could run at the speed of 30 kilometers per hour. With 4 people carrying the palanquin, it could reach up to 120 kilometers per hour. What kind of logic is that? MC was taken aback by the sheer speed of the palanquin, realizing the magnitude of the challenge ahead. His determination wavering as he faced the daunting speed of the palanquin. A sharp curve approached, testing his resolve and skill. His determination was put to the test as he navigated the challenging curve.
Minus à 12 ans aura point.
Young called out, urging him not to give up so easily, pushing him to continue the race. She taunted the student, asking if he wanted to become a pet as well, adding to his frustration. His frustration grew, the taunts from her fueling angering him. He couldn't help but wonder if the carriers of the palanquin ever got tired. Young laughed, telling the biker to enter a certain section, hinting at more challenges ahead. The biker ordered someone to get ready to fire, adding to the tension of the race. With the press of a button, a rock shot out of a watchtower. MC noticed something unusual, his curiosity piqued by the unexpected sight. And boom, they done almost made him into fried chicken. He was taken aback by what he saw, his shock evident. He let out a cry, his frustration and determination reaching a boiling point. He vowed to report them and put them in jail, calling them monsters and demons, his determination to win the race stronger than ever. The carriers of the palanquin were not pleased with his threats, vowing to show him what happens to those who challenge them. A voice echoed, suggesting to give him a good puncture. The biker panicked, stammering that he didn't mean to call out, his face pale with fear. Instantly, 3 punctures were on his big-ass forehead. A burst of laughter filled the air as someone mentioned acupuncture, the sound echoing ominously. The figure emerged, declaring that finally, she had a patient to take care of, her eyes gleaming with anticipation. A.W. The protagonist was identified as the patient, though he looked too healthy to be one, causing confusion among the onlookers. The atmosphere heavy with punctures. The creepy face declared that she would have to make him not healthy first, a sinister smile spreading across her face. The protagonist screamed in terror as strange objects appeared, their horrifying forms causing him to recoil in fear. His screams echoed through the city, a chilling sound that sent shivers down everyone's spines. Yaina, with her spidey senses, somehow felt that. She wondered if that was Sung Hyun's voice she had heard, but her friend dismissed it, claiming she hadn't heard anything. She insisted she had heard it, but her friend suggesting it might have been an elk. Gaslighting queen. Figures then appeared on top of the building. Suddenly, a voice boomed, questioning why someone would enter their realm with hair on their scalps, suggesting they wished to be reincarnated. The Yellow Dragon monks, Jeongju's biggest gang, had arrived. The chief monk of the Yellow Dragon Temple, known as the Guide to Paradise, spoke, saying he saw that they still walked around this earth disobeying Buddha. He declared that he would teach them the law of Buddha, his voice echoing with authority. A simple "oh" escaped her lips. "Yeah, Buddha gang about to do y'all in." And these crazy bastards jumped off the building. Not a superhero landing. The chief monk spoke again, questioning why they looked fearful, his voice calm and collected. A burst of laughter escaped him as he told them to relax, assuring them he wouldn't make them enter into nirvana. Yaina stammered, her voice trembling as she addressed the monks, her fear evident. With the Mike Tyson special, she didn't waste no time. The air was thick with tension as everyone watched. Her friend shouted, accusing her of throwing a punch that was way too harsh. The room erupted with claims that messing with religious people was a big no-no. But the response was sharp. "Open your eyes and take a closer look," she said, because things weren't as they seemed. The focus shifted to a flag, its pattern raising eyebrows. "It was shady," she muttered, like something out of a conspiracy theory. "Yeah, that flag is crazy." And then there were the skinheads. The accusations flew. "How dare you punch their chief monk?" Not looking good for the Yellow Dragon Temple. She blurted out that these people were neo-Nazis, here to lynch 2 girls of color. "Okay, it definitely just went there." "Are you crazy?" her friend shouted, the disbelief palpable. "They'll bring down this webtoon if you make racist jokes like that," she warned, the panic rising. But the response was confusion. "Webtoon? What are you talking about? Her awareness is out of this world." A laugh echoed through the room, breaking the tension for a brief moment. It was a nervous laugh, the kind that comes when you're not sure whether to cry or laugh. "Got me," the chief admitted, the realization dawning. He hadn't expected an attack while letting his guard down. It was as spicy as the punch he got from the head of Silla Girls High School. The name Je Suseon hung in the air, a reminder of a past encounter. "That's a girl? Why bring up an old story?" someone asked, the blush rising. The Yellow Dragon Temple Axe Monk, legally known as Je Suseon, was not amused, but the response was playful. "Haha, don't be shy. Anive, di," he shouted, the tension snapping back into place. But Yaina the monster, is she easily dodged? She readied her fist. "And damn, that is a nice uppercut. Sensational." A groan echoed, the sound of him struggling. "Shoot, she's too strong," someone shouted, the panic rising. The crowd was spinning with intensity. "Get her," someone else shouted, the urgency clear. "Wait," her friend said, trying to intervene. "I'm gonna try and stop her." But the response was sharp. "Who are you? Get out of the way. Side characters, right? Seems like I can't convince them with words," she muttered, the realization dawning. This is the Skullbreaker, guardian of the teacher's authority, she announced, the weight of the words hanging in the air. I picked it up in the teacher's room before I came here. Damn, she's nice with it. Ugh, that attack was insulting. Someone groaned, the pain clear. I'm going to sue you for defamation, another said. You should have listened when I said it nicely, she warned, the urgency clear. Out of the way. Here comes another crazy chick. A laugh echoed through the room, breaking the tension for a brief moment. He serves you right. That's what happens when you defy Buddha, someone said, the relief palpable. But then a pause. Wait, what's that over there? Is that a dust storm? Someone asked, the confusion clear. What could be causing a storm like that? A cry echoed through the room, the sound of MC being chased by anything you can think of. The scream that had just echoed through the room left everyone on edge, hearts pounding like they just binge-watched a horror series. A high-pitched shriek sliced through, making everyone jump. It was like someone had just seen a ghost or maybe a really big spider. Amid the chaos, Yaina noticed Sung Hyun, looking out of place, like a character who just walked into the wrong scene. The confusion was real. What was he doing there? A sharp voice cut through the confusion, scolding her for not paying attention. It was like a teacher catching a classroom full of daydreamers. And boom, the impact sent her flying and crashing onto the wall. Then, a calm but intense voice broke the silence, declaring that they were finally 100% warmed up. It was like a gym coach about to drop the workout of a lifetime on an unsuspecting group. The chief continued, promising to turn her into a true Buddhist. I thought Buddhists don't do violence? Moments ago. Yaina getting palmed into the wall. Then, the chief declaring he was finally 100% warmed up. He announced his intention to turn her into a true Buddhist. The chief swings. Yaina narrowly dodges. Quick shift. And a kick, but the overpowered chief easily blocked. He swings, but monster Yaina ducks. She readies her attack. In a blur, she kicked the bald-ass-headed chief's smooth head. The chief sensed hesitation in the attacks, calling out her for her worldly concerns. He declared he was going to rid everyone of their thoughts and fill their minds with the teachings of Buddha. Where are the police? Seriously. He told her not to resist, promising peace and a strange comment about saving time on washing her hair. It was surreal, to say the least. She groaned in frustration, muttering the crazy bastard trying to turn her into a skinhead. The chief announced that things were going to get cumbersome, but promised to show the true power of Buddha's palm. He declared that Buddha's palm was not a tool for killing, but a technique that spreads the law. He mentioned something about the grass on the grave being cut in the shape of a palm. He declared that Buddha's palm makes you a child of Buddhism, explaining the profound meaning behind it. He couldn't even react, muttering about it being a shame. He declared he was going to show the true power of Buddha's palm. That's intense. Yaina asked if he meant cucumber, leaving everyone confused. Yeah, what? A huge light emits to Yaina's side. She muttered that she couldn't even react. The chief explained that Buddha's palm is a technique that spreads the law, not a tool for killing. He mentioned the grass on the grave being cut in the shape of a palm, leaving everyone intrigued. Damn, that's crazy. He declared that Buddha's palm makes you a child of Buddhism, explaining the profound meaning behind it. As the weight of Buddha's words lingered, the profound meaning behind the palm left her in deep thought. Yeah, run, Forrest, run. Suddenly, a nervous voice broke the silence, trying to calm Chief down. The chief responded with a mix of reassurance and a hint of playful menace, suggesting that she would learn to like whatever was happening. A faint sound of feet could be heard, and a large boom. A command was given to drop someone or something off, and a respectful, almost eager response followed, addressing her as my queen. Ayung takes a step. She struggled to see MC, her words slurred and uncertain. The setting changed abruptly to a historic site, Donggung Palace and Woolji Pond. She taunted, asking if he had already given up, the tone dripping with sarcasm. Her resigned voice responded, admitting that this was what she expected, but she had hoped for something a little more entertaining. A brief pause hung in the air. A sudden exclamation of surprise echoed, the sound sharp and unexpected. Another cry of shock followed, her voice strained and alarmed, reacting to something insane. She muttered something about Korean medicine doctors and cat food. Do you think she's the craziest? A command was shouted to stop MC, and a quick, eager response followed. Something unexpected had happened, and she mused about crossing the finish line while he was being held off. A simple, curious sound escaped her lips, a quiet "Oh, you're too late, bitch." A huge explosion occurs. A voice declared her intent to cut throats to make up for a mistake, the words chilling and determined. A garbled sound escaped Miss Seo, the noise indistinct but heavy with emotion. A heated exchange followed, with accusations of evil and justifications of a teacher's job to beat up students who got off track. A young commanded her get out of the way, her voice strained and desperate, adding to the sense of urgency. But Miss Seo, smooth as butter, easily dodged. She mentions of an Ethic 21 wearable was made. Is that you, James Bond? Are they ray flying? What kind of whip does that? Miss Seo was not fazed at all though. A sound of frustration escaped MC, a simple ugh that hinted at his growing impatience or annoyance. He muttered about everyone being crazy, but admitted that someone had just saved his life. A final exclamation of frustration and fear echoed, his voice strained and desperate, hinting at the high stakes and the potential for things to go terribly wrong. The desperate echo faded, leaving behind a heavy silence. But then, a glimmer of hope. He reassured himself that he was close, the finish line almost within reach. Just as hope began to rise, a commanding voice cut through the air, halting everything in its tracks. The voice accused him of planning to escape alone while someone else was dealing with another threat. The voice made it clear they were not going to let him get away. The threat was explicit, the danger real and immediate. The situation was spiraling out of control. The threat escalated, the voice promising to turn him into a gruesome decoration. The imagery was vivid, the intent clear. This was not going to end well. Run, Forrest, run. A large arm, almost like the Hulk's. The situation was dire, the outcome seemingly inevitable. A sigh of resignation filled the air, the reality of the situation sinking in. It was a moment of acceptance, a quiet surrender. The outcome seemingly sealed. This man is literally flying. But then, a thought emerged. Perhaps this was a less painful end than becoming a toy for the monsters. The idea was chilling, the reality harsh. He whispered about seeing the light, wondering if this was the end. Suddenly, a voice cut through the tension, offering a glimmer of hope. Someone had him, the grip firm and reassuring. Bro, what? The weight of the words sinking in. He asked about someone's hair, the question hanging in the air. The situation was surreal, the reality hard to grasp. A reassuring voice responded, telling him it was okay. She suggested thinking about naughty things to make something grow back. The comment was unexpected. He expressed surprise, the situation taking an unexpected turn. The moment was surreal, the reality hard to grasp. He wondered why his face was burning and his heart was thumping. Love, my boy, love. The trivia about photosensitivity syndrome was shared, explaining the symptoms caused by exposure to a flash of light. She declared that worldly concerns were useless. The statement was bold, the intent clear. The situation was taking a philosophical turn. A moment of silence followed. She pondered what was really important. She concluded that it was important to pursue and reach, asking if they agreed. The moment was charged, the tension almost unbearable. The tension hung heavy in the air, thick enough to cut with a knife. The voice had just posed a question, leaving everyone in a state of contemplation. What was truly important? The question seemed to resonate, demanding an answer. The answer came, clear and resolute. To pursue and reach, that was what truly mattered. The question was posed again, seeking agreement, urging them to acknowledge the truth in the statement. The narrative shifted, introducing a new element. There were 3 runaways, or perhaps 4 if young one was included. The count seemed uncertain, adding a layer of mystery to the situation. Ms. Seo issued a threat, cold and harsh. She intended to break the 4 into pieces, her words carrying a chilling promise of violence. A question was raised, accusing her of pretending to be a teacher while harboring violent intentions. The teacher lamented her career choice, wishing she had become a rapper instead. Yaina was accused of being rude to her teacher. In response, she declared herself no longer bound by worldly rules, her words carrying a sense of liberation and defiance. A laugh echoed, mocking and disbelieving. Yaina was called shameful, her words twisted and used against her. She was accused of speaking of Buddhist ideas while having a boy by her side. The accusation met with shock and disbelief. She defended MC, declared to have nothing to do with the situation. The truth was revealed, harsh and unyielding. She had saved the boy because of her desire, not out of compassion or mercy. The revelation was met with denial, Yaina refusing to accept the truth. I thought teachers are supposed to help. Questions were raised, confusion and shock evident in the MC's thoughts. Had she really become a monk? The situation seemed unbelievable, the revelation shocking. The truth seemed to resonate, demanding acceptance. The biker questioned the actions of the lady, his words carrying a sense of urgency and concern. A declaration was made, introducing a new boss. The protagonist had won the death race, his victory carrying a sense of finality and power. Confusion was evident, the situation seemingly unbelievable. This teacher is so crazy. Questions were raised, confusion and urgency evident in MC's words. He questioned the identity of the biker gang and their motives for saving him. A declaration was made, introducing the importance of speed to a biker gang. It was only natural they served the best racer as their boss. Confusion was evident, the situation unbelievable. Confession was made, Ah-young admitting defeat. She had no excuse, totally defeated by Sung-hyun. She even acknowledged Sung-hyun's mastery of the art of racing, questioning if there was anything he couldn't do. A promise was made, Ah-young declaring her intention to take off the load of being the boss. An order was given, everyone instructed to return with their new boss. The command was met with agreement, the people ready to follow the new leader. A plea was made, the protagonist begging not to be followed. But the plea fell on deaf ears as the relentless pursuit continued. The demands of the Buddha grew louder, more insistent, echoing through the space like a thunderclap. Shout louder. The response was a weak, almost inaudible murmur, a stark contrast to the booming commands. A pause, a moment of silence that seemed to stretch on forever. Then, a quiet, almost curious sound broke through the tension. Oh! MC pulled up with his squad. Confusion seeped into the air, a palpable sense of disorientation that seemed to ripple through the space. Huh? The confusion turned to shock, then to outright panic. What the? Who are you? The Buddha was a mix of fear and disbelief, a desperate attempt to make sense of the situation. Stop right there. The panic grew, the voice now a frantic plea. Don't come near me. The words were a desperate attempt to create distance, to establish some semblance of safety. Nightingale. The second in command then gave an order. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted once more. The voice now filled with a righteous indignation. How dare you? This is blasphemy. The words were a mix of anger and disbelief, as if the very fabric of reality was being challenged. What? You think you are Buddha? He's running away. Go get him. The words were a call to action, a rallying cry that seemed to echo through the space. Yeah. The reality of the situation began to sink in. MC now a mix of awe and disbelief. They beat up Buddha. How far are we gonna go? The disbelief grew. The voice now a mix of shock and awe. The new boy defeated the principal statue of Sakimana. The tension broke. The voice now a mix of relief and exhaustion. Are we done with history? The words were a desperate plea, a longing for an end to the chaos. A sigh of relief filled the air. The voices now a mix of exhaustion and gratitude. Ah, the nightmare is finally over. The gardening club president. The words were a mix of respect and disbelief. But he's a god. The admiration grew. The voices now a mix of longing and desire. The gardening club and now even the biker gang. The more I know him, the more I want him. Hey, get in line, girl. Yuck, just yuck. A squeal of excitement filled the air. The voices now a mix of joy and infatuation. I love you. The air was thick with emotion. MC is basically king from One Punch Man. The tension lingered, a hater among us. A sigh of exasperation filled the air. The mohawk now a mix of frustration and disbelief. Those idiots. And bam, he gets sent flying by a car. Back to the school. A voice broke through the silence, a mix of curiosity and frustration. Why is our school's field trip only for a day? The response was a shrug, a non-committal she don't know. Ina, is something bothering you? The response was a quick denial, a defensive what? No, I'm just thinking, how did her hair grow back in one day? The voice grew softer, more introspective. Does the Heart Sutra still linger in your ears? Her response was a quiet, almost hesitant, a little yes. Now a mix of confession and longing. She heard Sung-hyun hung out with a girl in Gyeongju. Her friend interjected, a mix of denial and disbelief. No, she wasn't that muscular. The conversation continued, now a mix of encouragement and curiosity. Then why don't you ask him on a date? The response was a mix of hesitation and uncertainty. But it kind of feels like Sung-hyun's avoiding me. Her friend grew more insistent, a mix of reassurance and excitement. It's okay. She know the perfect way to ask someone out. Yaina called out, a mix of urgency and excitement. Sung Hee-un, are you busy? She seemed to catch him off guard, leaving him stunned and questioning what he just heard. The instructions continued, suggesting that once she had his attention, they should hit the wall. This, apparently, would show him how energetic and enthusiastic she was. A brief pause followed. She almost took his head off. She then asked if he was free this Saturday. Another pause ensued, perhaps to let the weight of the question hang in the air. She then suggested they meet up at 2 o'clock on Saturday. She thanked him, though the response was a bit cut off and unclear. She looks at her friend. Her friend, hiding in the cabinets. She exclaimed, "Perfect," breaking the silence and bringing the conversation to a close. Another brief pause followed, perhaps to let the finality of the statement sink in. The conversation seemed to end with an "okay," leaving the impression that the plan was set and the meeting would take place. The plan set in motion. The silence continued, leaving him with fear. Yaina searches for dates. MC searched for least painful ways to be unalived. The narrative paused, leaving the audience to wonder what would happen next and how the characters would prepare for their meeting. As the anticipation of the meeting lingered, a lively voice suddenly burst through the airwaves, greeting everyone and welcoming them to Gazelle TV. The host, brimming with excitement, announced that they were at a very special cat cafe and invited everyone to see what kind of cats they had there. The host introduced the first cat, a majestic leopard, followed by a charming catman, each one more unique than the last. The host then suggested checking out a popular place that Young One had recommended, adding a sense of adventure to the broadcast. But Yaina quickly pivoted to another thrilling idea: bungee jumping, with a 50% chance the rope might snap. Not stopping there, she proposed being the target at an archery cafe, claiming that Young One said it was really fun, adding a touch of danger and excitement to the mix. After all the wild suggestions, MC finally settled on a simpler idea: having some regular snacks, bringing a sense of relief and normalcy to the broadcast. The scene paused for a moment. She agreed to the idea of having snacks so easily, it almost seemed suspicious, adding a hint of intrigue to the broadcast. MC couldn't help but wonder if this was a plan to lower his guard before making a move, calling her a natural predator. She asked if there was a specific place in mind, but the answer was vague, adding to the sense of mystery and anticipation. He then suggested going to a place he knew, and she agreed. Things weren't going according to plan, and someone couldn't help but feel like they needed to get their hands dirty, hinting at a possible change in strategy. The person considered Plan B. The Audacity Mohawk dude out here creeping. He wondered what kind of noises the protagonist would make when he beat him up, adding a sense of anticipation and excitement to the broadcast. He was looking forward to it. The scene paused for a moment with the teacher sneaking up. That is one scary face. The teacher was looking forward to the confrontation, wondering what kind of noises he would make when he beat him up. The Mohawk dude screamed and running for his life. It was Saturday, 1:50 p.m., and the host had brought items that would help them in case of an emergency, adding a touch of danger and excitement to the mix. The protagonist showed off a swordproof vest he bought for $300 from Amazon. Swordproof vest adding a sense of danger and excitement. He also had a bear spray that could make even Gamsoon groggy. And finally, the host showed off a golden hamster keyring, bringing a touch of cuteness and normalcy to the mix. Sung-hyun had arrived early, and Yaina asked if he had been waiting long, adding a sense of anticipation and excitement to the broadcast. She was glad to hear that Sung-hyun hadn't been waiting long, leaving MC stunned. MC couldn't help but notice that she looked pretty all of a sudden, adding a touch of romance and intrigue. Okay, not bad. She suggested they go eat now. She mentioned that this was her favorite place for snacks, a rice cake temple. MC over here looking his mind at her appearance. The owner of the temple introduced themselves, adding a touch of humor and intrigue to the mix. The owner mentioned that he took offerings instead of money, asking for 50 virgin men and women. What in Zeus's name? After the shocking revelation about the offerings, MC couldn't help but feel a mix of curiosity and unease. As they walked away from the eerie establishment, Yaina mentioned that he was just a local, nothing to worry about, but MC couldn't shake off the feeling of being observed. Their next stop was the Rice Cake Temple Muscle Branch, a place that seemed worlds apart from their previous encounter. As they entered, they were greeted with a familiar laugh, a stark contrast to the tension they had just experienced. The warm welcome from the temple employee, Aphrodite, put them at ease. Yaina ordered her usual, but a case of mistaken identity led to a brief moment of tension. However, it was quickly resolved, and they all had a good laugh about it. As they settled in, they couldn't help but feel a sense of normalcy returning. When asked about his order, he decided to have the same as her, creating a sense of camaraderie and shared experience. They all agreed on the same thing, a simple decision that brought them closer together. It was a small moment, but it felt significant. Looking at the menu together, he couldn't help but notice how normal everything seemed. It was a welcome change from the strangeness they had encountered earlier. He wondered about the unusual menu items, but decided to focus on the recommendations. The mint chocolate flavor seemed to be a favorite among the regulars. They decided to order rice cake with cheese, a popular choice among the patrons. The spiciness level was a topic of debate, but they eventually agreed on a medium level. As they waited for their order, they couldn't help but feel a sense of love in the air. The weather outside was pleasant, and the rice cake looked beautiful. It was a perfect moment, a snapshot of happiness amidst the chaos. Yeah, right. Their moment of peace was interrupted when someone recognized them. It was Ms. Seo. Ms. Seo expressed her surprise at seeing them there. She asked if they were hanging out together because it was the weekend, a question that made them feel a mix of embarrassment and amusement. Ms. Seo teased them about their exams, a sore subject that they quickly tried to change. The mood was light, and the banter was flowing. Despite the teasing, they couldn't help but feel a sense of warmth. Crazy-ass teacher. Ms. Seo offered to pay for their meal, a gesture that touched them deeply. It was a small act of kindness, but it meant the world to them. They ordered a very spicy Hawaiian mint chocolate rice cake and a medium rose flavor to go. It was a unique combination, a reflection of their adventurous spirit. The day had been full of surprises, and he wondered what else was in store. They thanked Ms. Seo for her kindness and said their goodbyes, promising to see her at school. As she left the restaurant, an explosion out of nowhere. Their peaceful moment was shattered when a group of individuals suddenly appeared, accusing them of being treacherous and going against tradition. The leader of the group, the Incheon anti-trade leader Texas Machine Gun, questioned their choice of rose rice cake, a flavor that came from the West. He called them radical reformist traitors, a harsh accusation that left them stunned. They stood there, speechless and unsure of how to respond. The situation had escalated quickly, and they were caught off guard. The restaurant owner attacked, demanding to know who had destroyed his establishment. He accused them of being from Valhalla, a claim that only added to the confusion. As the tension rose, someone mentioned boxing, a comment that was met with disdain. The situation was spiraling out of control. The mention of Taekyon, a superior martial art, only added to the chaos. He was experiencing Josian's advanced culture firsthand, but it was not what he had expected. Suddenly, he unalived the guy with a gun. It was a shocking turn of events. Still reeling from the shock of seeing a teacher take someone out with a gun, the students were confronted by the teacher, who questioned their presence at the school. Were they there just to enjoy some rice cake, or was there more to their visit? The teacher reminded them of the school's strict rules, pointing out that a boy and a girl sitting together after the age of 7 was a big no-no. With a stern tone, he suggested they might want to meet Confucius in the netherworld if they continued to disregard the traditions. The teacher's voice boomed as he emphasized the importance of abiding by the traditional ways, his words echoing with authority. Yaina tried to lighten the mood, joking about how she could have resolved the situation peacefully if she was with IP Man from the Qing dynasty. The protagonist, however, was confused, wondering if the Qing dynasty still existed. Yaina, seemingly amused by their confidence, challenged them, asking if they really thought they could take her out. He laughed, acknowledging her boldness but reminding her that she might not be able to take him down. But then, the teacher's attention shifted to a friend who was trying to sneak away, questioning his actions. The friend, caught in the act, stammered, trying to explain that he wasn't running away. He claimed that the teacher's words had opened his eyes and that he was going to read the words of Confucius to get away from the barbaric scene. With a sudden burst of energy, he declared he was going to leave, his words filled with newfound determination. The teacher, now addressing all anti-trade members, prepared to give further instructions. With a chilling command, the teacher ordered them to capture the boy alive. The tension escalated as he screamed. In the chaos, Yaina called out for Sung Hyun, her voice filled with urgency and fear. A sharp cry echoed through the room, and another big-ass explosion. The sharp cry still hung in the air as a voice suddenly called out Sung Hyun. A high-pitched shriek followed, making it clear that something was very, very wrong. A low groan broke the silence, hinting at someone's discomfort and pain. Then, his voice boomed with rage, questioning how inferior humans dared to cause such chaos. The accusation was clear: someone had blown up a restaurant, and the culprit was not happy about it. Then the swole-ass Miss Seo kneed the shit out of him. She shouted for him to get out of the way, calling him a hobo. A panicked voice cried out to the boss, warning that they were in trouble, escalating the sense of urgency. The warning continued, revealing that a crazy woman was attacking, or rather, slaughtering people. The ethics teacher from Humiso School was identified as the attacker, accusing the Confucius fanboys of breaking the law. The ethics teacher declared that modern ethics were meant to dismantle traditional societies, and threatened to break someone into head, chest, and abdomen. A laugh echoed through the room, as he found the situation amusing, commenting on how the world had indeed changed with a woman talking back to a man. Oh shit, feminists will not like this guy. A challenge was issued, and he accepted it, ready to face whatever came next. Looking back, it was clear that a lot of really bad things had happened, setting a somber tone. It was almost a mystery that he was still alive, given the chaos and destruction. At the heart of it all was a central figure, someone who seemed to be the cause of all the turmoil. He was processing the events that had unfolded, regretting everything. Then, a name was called out, Ina Kim, identifying her as the central figure. Her concerned voice asked if he was okay. He responded affirmatively, but then paused, as if something had just occurred to him. She then turns. And her annoying-ass friend, looting people. Then she nodded her head. Yaina nodded back. She then, expressing curiosity about what he thought of her. The question hung in the air, leaving him wondering how to respond and what the consequences might be. Should he confess his feelings for her? The idea flickered for a moment, but the fear of making things worse quickly extinguished it. Frustration crept in as he struggled to find the right path forward. Suddenly, a voice echoed in his mind, declaring his thoughts were filled with darkness. The absurdity of the moment struck him as he recalled the golden hamster keyring, a symbol of something far more significant than it appeared. The voice continued, warning that the darkness within him grew stronger with his teasing ways. Honesty, it claimed, would set him free, shining like a beacon in the shadows of his mind. Trying to trick himself would only lead to regret, the voice cautioned. It urged him to be brave, to find the courage within himself to face the truth. Perhaps the voice was right. With a newfound resolve, he thanked the mysterious golden hamster for its wisdom, feeling a strange sense of clarity. He echoed once more, declaring it had been completely honest with him, leaving him with a sense of finality and determination. A sudden confession of fear pierced the air. Confusion set in as she muttered to herself, trying to make sense of the situation. Her friend looks. Miss Seo looks. Even the crazy pilgrim teacher heard. The word chance echoed. She questioned why, if he was scared of her, he had engaged with her all this time and shown up to this appointment. The contradiction puzzled her. He explained that he had no choice, given the unusual circumstances of their meeting. The memory of the acts used to ask him out surfaced, a reminder of the peculiar bond they shared. She wondered why she didn't know any of this before. He asked if she had ever considered what it was like to be a weak person, suggesting she hadn't because she never needed to. The question lingered, prompting deep reflection. She admitted he hadn't known anything. She had one last question for him, asking if it was okay to proceed. He agreed, bracing himself for what was to come. He gave his consent, urging her to do whatever she wanted. The anticipation built as he waited for the final question. She simply said, "Remember," leaving him hanging, wondering what he was supposed to recall. He asked what he was supposed to remember, but she trailed off, mentioning something about 10 years ago, leaving him in suspense. She concluded it was nothing, assuming he didn't remember. The mention of 10 years ago hinted at a deeper history, a past he couldn't quite grasp. Flashback time. It was finally happening, the long-awaited showdown between Muscle Elementary School's strongest, Ina Kim, and the City of Muscle's strongest, Seo Yoon Jang, also known as the Undertaker of the Abyss. Ina Kim emerged victorious without taking a single hit, her strength and determination evident as she prepared for her piano lesson, looking tough and ready for a recital. A group of children approached, offering her a sand castle they had made, a gesture of friendship and admiration for her strength. Despite her victories, Ina felt a pang of loneliness. Her strength had isolated her, leaving her with few companions and a sense of solitude at a young age. Apart from the occasional high schoolers who challenged her, the only entertainment she found was an old game machine in front of the stationery store. A lonely pastime for a lonely girl. That dude is 42 years old in high school. How dumb can you be? It was then that everything began to change, the course of her life shifting in ways she couldn't yet imagine. A young MC chimed in, playfully mocking her lackluster performance in the game, dubbing her the master of apartment noise and jokingly questioning how she could possibly fail on the zombie map. Laughter filled the air as the playful banter continued, with a confident promise of defeat hanging in the balance. With a hint of intrigue, he urged her to watch closely, setting the stage for a showdown. The game began, and it was clear that this was no ordinary match. The skills on display were impressive, leaving her in awe. What was happening? This wasn't the outcome she expected. He couldn't help but admit that he was usually better than this. With a sigh, he bid farewell, leaving the gaming world behind for now. But the story didn't end there. A question hung in the air: would they play again? The silence was palpable, the weight of the moment hanging between them. A smile crept across his face as he agreed to another match, the excitement of a rematch already building. He couldn't shake the feeling that he had more to prove, that he was better than her previous performance. With a final exchange of goodbyes and a shared sense of anticipation, she looked forward to their next gaming session, the promise of another battle hanging between them. The events of the day replayed in her mind, each moment etched into her memory. Laughter echoed in her, a mix of amusement and self-deprecation. What had she been doing all this time? She felt like a fool, but there was a strange comfort in that realization. It was a little late, but she was glad she had found out. The truth, though uncomfortable, was a relief in its own way. She couldn't help but wonder if he had felt the same discomfort. With a sense of resolution, she promised not to bother him again, a hint of apology in her voice. As he pondered the events, a question lingered in his mind. Had he gotten what he hoped for, and had it come so easily? The weight of his thoughts pressed down on him, a mix of satisfaction and uncertainty swirling within him. He had wanted this from the first day of school, a sense of belonging and acceptance. And now it had finally happened. The realization washed over him, a mix of joy and disbelief. It had finally happened, the moment he had been waiting for. He should be happy, but the emotions were more complex than he had anticipated. His thoughts a whirlwind of confusion and introspection. Why was he feeling like this? He couldn't shake the feeling of uncertainty, the emotions gnawing at him. As he grappled with his thoughts, another question surfaced. Why was he feeling like this? The emotions were a tangled web, and he struggled to make sense of them. He needed time to process. Back to the school. A voice called out, the name IP Man hanging in the air. She couldn't help but wonder who it was. The curiosity piqued. But the response was clear, a firm but polite decline. The most beautiful girl in the area, IP Man Park, was not interested in dating anyone. Here we go with the baldy now. But the moment was short-lived as the focus shifted to a new interaction, one that promised to be just as intriguing. It was clear that the person was done talking, and pulled a Dr. Octopus from Spider-Man. It turned out that a simple mention of a name had been misinterpreted, leading to a humorous realization. The students in this school were indeed hopeless, prone to jumping to conclusions without a second thought. She stammered, trying to find the right words. The frustration boiled over, with her expressing a strong desire to punch Mohawk in the face. But the response was calm and collected, almost charming, which only added to the complexity of the situation. The conversation took a turn, with assurances that nothing bad would happen. The idea of studying infinitives was introduced, and it was met with a mix of resistance and fear. The thought of being transformed into a completely different person by the end of the study session was both intriguing and terrifying. He promised of transformation through studying was met with a mix of fear and reluctance. The conversation shifted to a new topic, with someone asking about the situation at the rice cake temple. The response was apologetic, hinting at an unexpected involvement from someone named Ms. Seo. The focus turned to Sulji Kong, the student council guidance manager. There was a sense of regret and responsibility in the air, with her expressing that she should have handled things herself to ensure a different outcome. The conversation took a more serious turn, focusing on the relationship between two individuals, Ina and Sung-hyun. It was clear that this relationship was of great importance and had significant implications. The discussion deepened, exploring how their bond could become a fatal flaw for Ina. A creepy laugh echoed through the room. The idea of controlling someone through their weakness was met with a mix of excitement and dread, hinting at the dark intentions lurking beneath the surface. The thought of her begging to keep her boyfriend alive was both terrifying and intriguing, revealing the depths of the situation and the stakes involved. This dude is a piece of shit. The disgusting laugh that had echoed through the room was met with a sharp rebuke. Damn, he's so pathetic. A sudden call for silence cut through the tension, demanding everyone's attention. The focus shifted to the violence that had tainted the school, with the blame being placed squarely on Ina Kim, the boss of Muscle City. The sense of urgency was palpable as it was declared that he couldn't wait any longer. The time for action had come. The plan was set into motion, with a promise to take care of the situation in the coming week. The goal was clear: to establish an academic atmosphere for the students, one that would bring order and stability back to the school. The final decision was made, with a call to proceed with Plan B. The response was swift and decisive, with everyone in the room ready to spring into action. The stage was set, and the time for change had finally arrived. With the final decision made and Plan B set in motion, the stage was set for change. But as the dust settled after a chaotic weekend, the weight of what was to come began to sink in. Monday rolled around again, bringing with it the familiar rhythm of school life. The halls buzzed with the usual energy, but something felt different this time. There he was, the gardening club president, striding through the halls with an air of confidence that made others want to hide. Just another day or so it seemed. But there was something off, a subtle shift in the usual routine that couldn't be ignored. Ina, who usually greeted with a smile, was strangely silent. No hello, no wave, just an eerie quiet. Felt strange, unsettling even. Gang chick, trying to break the ice, asked about the weekend. The response was lukewarm, a mere okay, that did little to ease the tension. But then, a question hung in the air: why was she in their class? And then, a present, a flower crown, meticulously crafted over the weekend. It was a beautiful piece, a testament to the effort put into it. But the reaction was less than enthusiastic. The thought of carrying a garland every morning was humiliating enough. The flower crown, though pretty, was a step too far. Yet it was hard to deny the craftsmanship. It dignified the role of the gardening club president, a small consolation. Ina was bothered, that much was clear. But it wasn't enough to make her speak up, a quiet struggle playing out in her mind. A question hung in the air, unspoken but heavy. What was going on with Ina? Why wasn't she showing any interest? The silence was deafening, a stark contrast to the usual chatter. It was clear from the start, a painful realization that she meant nothing to him. It was always like that, a one-sided affection that left her hoping for more. She hoped Sunghyun would see her in a special way, but it was just selfish. Nothing had changed, and the weight of that realization was heavy. Why did she keep feeling so bad about it? What was it that she wanted? A question that echoed in her mind without answer. The silence was thick, a quiet introspection that filled the space around her. A voice broke the silence, asking if she was angry. Did she look angry? The question caught her off guard. A realization that her emotions were written all over her face. She thought she had gotten away with it, but the truth was out. She had been secretly using his card to pay for things, a confession that hung heavy in the air. An apology followed, a promise not to get caught in the future. But the question remained, was she angry at Sunghyun? The thought was dismissed as quickly as it came. That couldn't be, she meant nothing to him. A cheerful greeting echoed through the room, a stark contrast to the heavy atmosphere. It was time for a fun class of ethics, or so it seemed. This crazy-ass teacher. But the question remained, why was she there? A demand to go back to her own class followed. There was a bit of trouble, that much was clear. But the class had to go on, a warning to keep up if they didn't pay attention. The air was thick with unspoken words, a tension that seemed to hang over everyone. The manager apology echoed through the room, a stark contrast to the heavy atmosphere. The reason for the interruption was clear: she was there to take something or someone. The teacher, warning that taking one of the students would come at a steep price. In response, an offer was made, a freshly hunted crocodile bag, which was met with a mix of surprise and disbelief. The guidance manager's presence added to the unease, leaving MC wondering about her intentions, with him even joking nervously about being fed to crocodiles. The guidance manager called out for MC, who responded with a mix of resignation and fear. The guidance manager reported to the president, announcing that he had been secured. The president acknowledged the report and inquired about the rest, leaving a sense of anticipation in the air. The focus shifted to the 4 most dangerous individuals who hadn't taken the self-learning program, hinting at a larger plan. How can she sleep with all that crazy shit going on? It was revealed that these individuals were all gathered in this class, setting the stage for what was to come. Another pause lingered, the tension building as she awaited further instructions. The president gave the order to proceed, a single word that set everything into motion. The response was immediate and obedient, but MC couldn't help but ask what was going on. And he falls for the trap. He found himself in an ancient passage, once used by teachers to skip class. Instructions were given to keep an eye on him, a task met with a mix of amusement and resignation. That dude creepy. An apology was offered, a moment of vulnerability that stood out amidst the tension. He really is pathetic. The rest of the group was instructed to follow, a command met with a mix of curiosity and apprehension. They were told they would learn about existentialism, a philosophy that emphasizes the individual as the master of human existence. The lesson began with an invitation to experience existence, a concept that left some puzzled and others intrigued. The question was asked if they could feel what it was like to be alive, a query met with a mix of confusion and frustration. One person exclaimed that this was crazy, questioning how dare she teach philosophy like this, a sentiment that echoed through the group. Amidst the chaos, Yaina wondered why the student council had taken Sunghyun, a question that added to the growing sense of unease. She then dismissed the idea, stating it had nothing to do with her. The teacher is suddenly sent flying. The topic shifted to class quality, a score of 0.7 out of 100, leaving much to be desired. The focus turned to a beautiful individual named IP Man, her appearance sparking a mix of admiration and concern. She got even stronger. Questions arose about what was wrong with her. A query met with a mix of confusion and curiosity. A sudden exclamation of surprise cut through the tension, adding to the growing sense of unease. The topic shifted to attitude in class, a score of 0.02 out of 100, leaving much to be desired. A plea to stay away was met with a promise to educate. Little did they know, the real chaos was just getting started. Suddenly, the room filled with a mix of confusion and sheer bewilderment as eyes widened at the sight before them. What in the world were these people doing? The shock only deepened as the bizarre behavior continued. They were acting completely out of character, like zombies with a sudden craving for knowledge. But no, they weren't your typical brain-eating zombies. These were something far more unusual. They had simply opened their eyes to the world of studying. Yes, studying. Who saw that coming? Okay, sure, they might have been a little intense about it. But hey, no judgment here. We've all had our cram session moments, right? Where had they even taken him? And why did it feel like the room was spinning with unanswered questions? Even if she tried to explain, it wouldn't matter. The answers were locked away, and the key was nowhere in sight. Silence. Sometimes it spoke louder than words ever could. A chuckle broke the quiet. The question hung in the air, sharp and sudden. Are you awake? Because this was starting to feel like a nightmare. Thick with unspoken fears and the weight of the unknown. A name slipped out, barely a whisper. Who was he? You're here as a hostage, and if that wasn't bad enough, you're screwed. The laugh that followed was anything but reassuring. But why? The question burned on the tip of the tongue. Money wasn't the issue here. There was something far more sinister at play. The answer came cold and calculated. It's because you are Ina's weakness. The laugh that followed was enough to make anyone's blood boil. The room seemed to spin with the weight of those words. What did they want with her? And why did it feel like the world was crashing down? The defense was weak, almost laughable. She's just an idiot who eats spicy food topped with mint chocolate. But was that really all there was to it? The accusation flew like a dagger. You're taking her side? There's something going on here, and it wasn't good. The orders were clear. Keep him there. But sitting around waiting? That was just boring. The suggestion came sharp and sudden. Why don't we play a game? But with the stakes this high, it wasn't exactly a friendly invitation. The question hung in the air, heavy and final. What do you say? Because whatever came next, it was clear this was far from over. The weight of the question lingered, but before an answer could surface, a new thought emerged. A dream, vivid and haunting, had taken root in his mind. It was a vision of something ancient, something so distant that its reality felt uncertain. The dream was a puzzle, its pieces scattered across time, making it hard to grasp whether it had truly happened or was merely a figment of imagination. In that hazy dream, a girl appeared, her skills in Metal Slug so lacking that it was almost comical. But her defeat was inevitable, crushed under the weight of exceptional skills that left no room for mercy. Victory was expected, a given. Yet, something about the girl nagged at the edges of memory, a familiarity that couldn't be ignored. Her face, though blurred by the passage of time, felt strangely close, as if she were more than just a fleeting figure in a dream. As he opened his eyes, a sharp, almost impatient tone demanded to know if he was awake, pulling him abruptly from the remnants of the dream. Mohawk continued, explaining that orders had been given to keep him there, but sitting around was apparently too boring for whoever was speaking. A game was proposed, one with stakes so high that it sent a chill down the spine. Their lives hung in the balance, and the choice was simple play or face the consequences. What did he say? Because whatever came next, it was clear this was far from over. A game? What kind of game? The questions swirled, but the answers were slow to come, leaving only a gnawing sense of unease. A laugh echoed, manic and unsettling, as he revealed the game Halligalli, the game of darkness. The loser would pay with their life. The rules were simple, the stakes impossibly high. It was a twisted game, one that no one in their right mind would agree to play. MC with the smart move, head Mohawk dude in the head with the quickness. Confusion reigned as the surroundings came into focus. Where was he? The classroom was unfamiliar, its walls seeming to close in with an almost oppressive energy. The unease grew, the need to escape becoming overwhelming. This place was creepy, and every instinct screamed to get out as quickly as possible. The silence was broken by a sudden, almost startled realization. A demon-looking person stood there, their presence disrupting the eerie calm of the room. But words cut through, cold and commanding. Eliminate him, it said, leaving no room for argument. The command was met with shock and disbelief. What the hell? Things had been going too smoothly, and now this? A plea was made, desperate and almost frantic. Someone, anyone, please bite the person following him. The situation was spiraling out of control. But the response was unexpected, a refusal laced with indignation. How could such a barbaric act be carried out by a seeker of knowledge? The words were met with a mix of relief and frustration. This was no time for moral high ground, not when survival was on the line. The cat, seemingly unperturbed by the chaos, launched into a lecture on outdated thinking and the importance of respect. This was the 21st century, after all. The situation was absurd, the tension palpable. A delicate lady had been called a man, and the cat was not having it. Study, it insisted, as if that were the solution to everything. The conversation took a sharp turn as the plant attempted to steer it toward academics, throwing out complex equations as if it were common knowledge. A laugh echoed, resigned and almost defeated. There was no fighting it. The student council had gotten to everyone. Their minds now focused solely on studying. The revelation was met with disbelief. The recreational manager, brainwashed? It seemed impossible, yet the evidence was mounting. The laughter continued, manic and unsettling. Brainwash? No, the student council had simply guided them toward the path of knowledge. The recreational manager, a seeker of fun, now a pawn in the student council's game. How about this knee to the face? Her chilling voice echoed, declaring that next was his turn. The threat was clear and direct. Silence fell. And then a loud explosion. Damn, he can't get a break. Meanwhile, Yaina ducks her kick, readies her punch. But the chick weaves like when your mom throws her shoes. She grabs Yaina. Her voice was confident, almost arrogant, claiming to read her like a book. She Batista bombs her ass, puts her in an arm bar. Yaina's realization dawned on her. The armbar, a move she knew all too well, was her only way out of this mess. But the chick was quick to catch on, questioning her resistance. Yaina breaks free. But the chick changes position. She tries another armbar. Yaina not playing that shit though. She punches so hard that the ground cracked. The chick rolls. Yaina mind raced, searching for a way out, a plan, anything to escape the mounting pressure. A sudden huff escaped her, the weight of the situation bearing down. But she was determined to see it through, to fight back no matter the cost. The chick was impressed, commenting on her flexibility, a small victory in the face of adversity. But the compliment was short-lived. The chick was quick to criticize, questioning her lack of learning. She should have rolled out instead, the chick taunted, a lesson learned too late in the heat of the moment. But Yaina was determined to shut out the noise, to focus on the task at hand, one hand more than enough to take out the threat. She just had to make sure she didn't fall down again. The chick liked her confidence. This was bad, she thought, the weight of the situation bearing down on her, the reality of her predicament sinking in. A sudden flash step. Yaina recalls when she grabbed her. She would lower her guard and defend. But doubt crept in. The chick's voice cut through, calling her out as an honest type, whatever that meant. Yaina struggling to keep up. The chick proceeds to falcon kick the shit out of Yaina. Then came the ultimatum, give up and hit the books like everyone else. But was that really an option now? The challenge was laid bare. The chick's declaration that victory against her was impossible. But Yaina had never been one to back down from a fight, especially not one like this. But giving up and studying like everyone else? That was never an option, no matter how impossible the fight seemed. The chick echoed, taunting that victory against her was out of reach. Yaina's scoff escaped, the frustration boiling over at the unseen her confidence. She had managed to pop his arm back into place, though time was running out, only a couple of minutes left before her arm gave out again. This was bad, really bad. She didn't have a choice. The fight had to go on, no matter the cost. She throws a smooth uppercut. She could felt the connection like a computer and Wi-Fi. She threw a short uppercut to match his tackle, a move the chick hadn't seen before, caught her off guard. She had analyzed all of Ina Kim's fights, memorized her patterns, and yet here she was, throwing something completely unexpected. She had only used an uppercut once before, and even then, it was more like a random swing. It wasn't a proper attack. She had sacrificed so much to analyze her fights, even skipping meals. And now this, she hadn't expected her to pull something like this. Yaina quickly recalled the basic stand shoulder-width apart, feet pointing to 2 o'clock. It was all about balance. Hands raised to eye level, backhand pulled toward the jaw, chin tucked in. She had to protect herself from the incoming attacks. She didn't like overthinking during a fight, But this was different. She had to adapt and fast. It was no use. The fight was slipping through her fingers, and she was running out of time. She couldn't see it coming. The attack was too fast, too unpredictable. She braced herself, ready to take the hit. There was no other choice. The impact sent a shockwave through her, her body screaming in protest. She staggered, her vision blurring for a moment. This was bad. She didn't know what had just happened, but she knew she had to be careful. Her punches were dangerous. She had to bring her down to the floor, and fast. Time was running out. There had to be a way. With an attempt to grab. A grunt escaped her as she prepared for the next move. The fight hanging in the balance. The adrenaline coursing through. When she had time, she promised herself she'd watch some No USSSin YouTube videos to improve. The thought was laughable, but she pushed it aside. A laugh escaped the chick. The laughter barely faded before she boomed, dripping with arrogance. Defeating this foe wouldn't be as easy as she thought. A reminder came from behind. The students were still there, watching, depending on her. Shit. The situation was worse than she thought. Even Ms. Seo was infected. The realization hit hard. This was even more serious than drawing comics. Her friend suggested studying, but the act was so bad it was almost comical. Her arm hurt, and the odds were not in her favor. She was in trouble, and she knew it. The pain in her arm was a constant reminder, and the number of enemies was overwhelming. Just as despair began to creep in, a voice echoed, offering a glimmer of hope. It looked like she might have some backup. The voice continued, reminding them of the responsibility that came with power to protect those in danger from harm. This was why he had to keep fighting. He stepped forward. He had come to help. Yaina sneered, mocking the new arrival's appearance and powers. But Sung Hyun-ji stood firm, ready to take on the challenge. With a determined look, he stepped forward, telling her to stay back. He would take care of these enemies. But then a cry of pain echoed through the air. He pleaded for a moment, trying to stop the fight. But the enemy was relentless. A desperate plea was made, but it fell on deaf ears. A scream of fear pierced the air. It seemed like he was at a dead end with nowhere to run. He was cornered, and the enemy was closing in. A dead end, nowhere to run. The enemy was upon them, and it seemed like all was lost. A desperate plea for mercy was ignored. The enemy was not interested in anything but victory. A groan of frustration escaped. The enemy was relentless, and the situation seemed hopeless. A textbook was used as a shield, but it was not enough. The enemy was too strong. A groan of pain escaped. The textbook seems to be their kryptonite. This is how it felt when we received homework. The enemy couldn't mess with textbooks, but taking them alone was a different story. A memory flashed, a reminder of something important when facing death. After taking care of the immediate threat, a promise was made. They would go play video games together, a light at the end of the tunnel. It was a small comfort in the midst of the battle. Yaina blushed. Hearing the promise of video games kept the hope alive. So basically the textbooks are like belts. He was challenging the class president, his words dripping with long-held resentment. But she instantly slapped the hell out of him. This confused MC dearly. Suddenly, Yaina echoed, calling out the guidance manager. The guidance manager was being questioned about a way to reverse the situation. The guidance manager revealed a peculiar solution: feed them mint chocolate to bring them back to normal. That's one way to get answers. She literally just said fuck her anyways. The atmosphere shifted, the protagonist sensing that the confrontation was nearing its end. He announced that they were almost done. He continued, hinting at a few questions. He threatened with chocolate, demanding answers. The questions began, demanding to know who planned this and why. The pink-haired guy laughed, asking if he really thought he would talk. Suddenly, pulled out a chug jug. The MC's eyes widened as he heard that everything was the student president's idea. He expressed shock, asking if that pervert was the student president. The pink-haired guy revealed that Jackson Kim went about his day acting like a regular student, but in reality, he had absolute power over every student. The protagonist offered more mint chocolate, asking if he was telling the truth. The pink-haired guy insisted he was. The protagonist considered the information, the guy not sounding like he was lying. He grappled with the revelation, wondering if that loser was really the one behind everything. The battle might have ended, but the war was far from over. What the fuck is up with his eyelashes? After the chaos that left Muscle High School in ruins, the aftermath settled in, leaving everyone to deal with the consequences of their actions. But as always, Principal New RHACI came through with his legendary fundraising skills, somehow managing to restore the school building to its former glory. By 2023, The new building of Muscle High School stood tall, a testament to the principal's determination and the students' resilience. The new cafeteria, however, was a different story. As students walked in, their hopes for a decent meal were quickly dashed. MC turned to another, asking if he knew what was for lunch, his tone laced with a mix of desperation and dread. The menu, curated by dietitian Natur Kim, was revealed, and the collective groan from the students said it all. This was going to be a long day. The reality of his situation sinking in. Noah's one was snapped out of his thoughts by a friend, urging him to stop eating the plant on his plate and join them at the store. The mission was clear: go get everything that's edible. The cafeteria food was a no-go, and they were taking matters into their own hands. Laughter echoed as one of them joked about treating the others to a full-course meal, a stark contrast to the cafeteria's offerings. The city boys clearly didn't know how to eat right. With their stomachs growling and their spirits lifted, they decided to head back, ready to face whatever came next. Meanwhile, MC had decided to skip lunch altogether, resigning himself to bringing his own food tomorrow. As he sat there, another student approached, asking if he had eaten lunch. The answer was a simple no, and the conversation seemed to take a turn. Yaina seemed to take pity on him, mentioning that it was too bad he hadn't eaten. There was a hint of something more in her tone, something that made MC uneasy. Turned out that she had brought lunch for him. The gesture was unexpected, and he couldn't help but feel a mix of gratitude and suspicion. She insisted that he eat it all, her tone leaving no room for argument. The protagonist hesitated, wondering if he really had to eat everything. Is it still alive? Yaina laughed, mentioning that she had heard boys liked their lunch alive. The protagonist couldn't help but feel a shiver run down his spine. She needs help. She mentioned that there was another one waiting for him, but he couldn't help but feel a sense of dread at the thought of what was to come. Rumors spread about Ina Kim offering a sacrifice, and the protagonist, known as the god of war, Sung Hyun-ji, was scared. The girls, in particular, were growing thinner and thinner. It was unbelievable, and some of them couldn't help but wonder if this was good for them. Pinky Kim, the former gardening club president, groaned about losing muscle because she had skipped lunch. The lack of proper meals was taking a toll on everyone. Finally, she looks normal. Flo Yuar Park, a baking club member, and Jisoo Kim, known as the human centrifuge, echoed the sentiment. They had no strength left in their bodies, and the situation was dire. Oh wow. The girls were growing thinner by the day, and it was becoming a serious concern. The lack of proper nutrition was taking a visible toll on their health. As the students struggled with their new reality, a sense of unease settled over the school. Something had to change, and soon. Amidst the chaos, a voice called out, asking what everyone wanted. The protagonist turned, wondering who it was and what they were doing there. He continued, asking why she was there and if she was there to fight. But the student council quickly reassured him, telling him to put down his weapons and relax. It wasn't what he thought. It turned out that she belonged to someone who had left the student council and decided to be a Buddhist. She had come to help, but MC couldn't help but wonder what kind of help she was offering. As he stood there, wondering what kind of help a former student council member turned Buddhist could offer, she echoed, hinting at a past event that had sparked the current chaos. Muscle High was once a prestigious school, renowned for its academic achievements rather than its fighting prowess. But something had changed, and the students couldn't help but wonder what had gone wrong. Jackson Kim was a genius, always ranking first in exams. He was the epitome of what Muscle High stood for, a beacon of academic excellence in a sea of chaos. Students would often ask Jackson for answers, and he would always deliver. But when he got something wrong, it was a shock to everyone. It was like seeing a unicorn trip and fall. Jackson would often quip that it was harder to get a question wrong if you had a brain. But when someone did, he couldn't help but wonder if there was a genetic problem at play. Classic Jackson, always keeping it real. He definitely deserved that. Jackson was a model student, respected by everyone. He was the kind of guy you couldn't help but look up to, even if he did have a habit of making you feel like you were a few fries short of a happy meal. But when a new class entered the school, everything changed. It was like a switch had been flipped, and the once peaceful halls of Muscle High were thrown into disarray. Rumors started to spread about a new student, Ina Kim. People were asking if she was really going to Muscle High, and if so, things were about to get interesting. A cactus person? Turned out Ina was a transfer student, and she had a reputation. People were saying they had always wanted to fight her at least once. It was like she had a target on her back from day one. And just like that, Ina was enrolled at Muscle High. People couldn't help but wonder if they even had a baking club there, because things were about to get heated. But wow, she's strong. Imagine beating up everyone in your class. Must be a great feeling. The new girl was already making waves. She told everyone to stay put while she went alone. Some saw her as prey, a target to be taken down. It was like the school had turned into a jungle, and Ina was the new lioness on the block. Meanwhile, the bear's parent was asking her which high school she got into. Ina's admission to the school had gathered fighters from all over the country. It was like she was a magnet for trouble, and everyone wanted a piece of the action. At first, the student council could control them. They were like the parents trying to keep a bunch of rowdy kids in line. But it was only a matter of time before things got out of hand. As time went by, everyone leveled up to meet Ina's level. It was like she had set a new standard, and everyone was trying to keep up. The school was no longer about academics, but about who could throw the hardest punch. Now that's a school I wish I went to. People stopped caring about studying, and the school had become a place that only worshipped strength. It was like the nerds had been replaced by jocks, and the only thing that mattered was who could bench press the most. There were even rumors of people wanting to kill everyone in Class 8. It was like they had a death wish, and they were taking everyone else down with them. The school had turned into a battlefield, and it was every man for himself. Those crazy lunatics were making it impossible to study. It was like they had declared war on education, and the only casualties were the students' GPAs. To the rooftop. In the midst of all the chaos, Jack declared that he was going to become the student president no matter what. It was like he saw the madness and thought, "Hey, I can do better than this." And he was going to get rid of all those crazy muscle monsters. He had a plan to take down the jocks and restore order to the school. But it was easier said than done. If he became the student president, could he expel the troublemakers and restore peace to Muscle High? He turned to look, and always gets his goofy-ass face punched. After that, Jackson disappeared. It was like he had vanished into thin air, leaving everyone wondering what had happened to the once great genius. When he came back after a long break, he looked hideous. It was like he had gone through a transformation, and not for the better. People couldn't help but think he had gone crazy. That feeling must be great to punch something hideous like that. Apologizing frantically, she expressed regret for an unspecified mistake. The conversation shifted as he was asked what had happened to him. With a laugh, he declared his ambition to become the student president. Soon enough, Jackson achieved his goal and became the student president. He took advantage of the chaos and lack of interest in the election to secure his position. Once in power, Jackson planned to remove all problematic students, including Ina Kim. However, his self-learning plan failed miserably. He decided to proceed with another plan this time. He contemplated various strategies to deal with the problematic students. One idea was to weaken their power by cutting off the food supply and then locking them up in a room, forcing them to study until they graduate. But then, MC realized that such actions were criminal. He wondered what Ina had done wrong but decided not to dwell on it. The student president hunted authority relentlessly. Even physical confrontation would not be easy. Jackson had placed an enormous amount of weapons on the school site. At this point, he could overpower everyone and make them study until they die. But surely, this had nothing to do with the protagonist, right? Wrong. He was also classified as a target because of his close relationship with Ina. Understanding his frustration, she suggested he surrender to the student council before Jackson made a move. The student council might let him off the hook. He was advised to play the role of a hostage for the student council to catch Ina. After all, there was no stopping the student council. They would get what they wanted in the end. The suggestion was to find a way to live, even if it meant being alone. She hesitated, considering the harsh reality of the situation. She pressed on, reminding him that he never liked Ina anyway, right? Confused and taken aback, he asked what was meant by that statement. The conversation left him in a state of uncertainty, wondering about the true intentions and the path he should take. By man was he getting creeped on by the cameras. The words hung in the air, a challenge, a plea, a question all at once. It was a raw, almost painful reminder of past uncertainties. She had vanished, leaving behind a whirlwind of confusion. The student council's actions were unfathomable, starving students in the 21st century. It was a plot straight out of a dystopian novel, yet it was unfolding right before their eyes. The danger was palpable, evident in the way Gamsoon's gaze shifted towards Paijeon. Something was brewing, something that sent a chill down the spine. Accusations flying like daggers. What were they plotting? The question lingered, met only with nervous denials that did little to ease the tension. That's a strong-ass pigeon, what the hell? A sudden announcement crackled through the air. A mic test that sent a jolt of unease through the crowd. The student council was about to make a move, and no one knew what to expect. Lunch in the auditorium? It was an odd command, one that sent a ripple of confusion and concern through the students. They were being herded, but to what end? The sudden assembly order felt like a trap. No way, the protagonist thought, his mind's racing with possibilities, none of them good. The truth began to unfold. A chilling plan to remove problematic students, including Ina Kim. The self-learning plan had failed, and now, a new, more sinister strategy was being put into play. What would come next? The plan was revealed, a chilling strategy to weaken the students by cutting off their food supply and locking them up, forcing them to study until graduation. It was a fate worse than anyone could have imagined. The auditorium, a place of learning, was now a prison. The students were to be locked up, forced to study until they graduated or worse. The horror of the situation was almost too much to bear. A desperate cry echoed through the chaos. "Young one, wait for me." But it was short-lived, as a hand grabbed Yaina. His plea echoed, "Don't go." It was a heart-wrenching moment, a last attempt to change the course of events. Why? The question hung in the air, unanswered, a painful reminder of the uncertainty that lay ahead. The silence stretched on, a moment of reflection, a suggestion to play games together. It was a nostalgic reminder of better days, a brief respite from the chaos. The moment was fleeting, a brief escape from reality. Yaina of course blushes. She's easy, huh? But then out of nowhere she jumped out the window. The scene shifted dramatically. From the chaos of the school to the halls of power, the White House stood tall, a symbol of authority and control. An urgent cry echoed through the halls. "Mr. President, we have an emergency." But the response was unexpected, a playful rebuke that belied the seriousness of the situation. The secretary pleaded, the urgency in their voice palpable. The president's response was playful, but the underlying threat was clear. This was no time for games. The news was shocking. A Korean high school girl was flying towards them at an incredible speed. It was a scenario straight out of a sci-fi movie, yet it was unfolding in reality. The order was given, "Stop her with all we've got. I'm just as lost as you are." The U.S. Navy nuclear power dragon was unleashed, a last resort to stop the incoming threat. Panic set in as the last resort failed. The girl, embarrassed and flustered, found herself all the way in the U.S. This unexpected arrival could spark a diplomatic crisis. The U.S. Aerospace Forces unveiled their strongest creature, MacGuffin 17. They had their own high school girl ready to fight, a beauty to rival the first. America always lying. Confidence filled the air as she believed she had the upper hand in terms of beauty. Typical delusional American female. The American girl, wide-eyed and curious, admitted she had never met a Korean before. She wondered aloud if it was true that every Korean household had a refrigerator just for kimchi. In a lighthearted moment, the American girl suggested they follow each other on Instagram, adding a playful tone to the tense situation. But she quickly reminded the Korean girl that she would have to survive her punch first. The Korean girl, realizing the intensity of the situation, apologized, saying she didn't mean for things to escalate this way. With a quick goodbye, the Korean girl ran away, leaving the American girl behind. The onlookers cheered, thinking the conflict was over. But the American girl knew better. She realized the Korean girl didn't run away out of fear, but perhaps out of respect or strategy. She pondered the possibility of meeting again someday, to finally decide who was the strongest on Earth. Confused, MC asked where she went. But they realized they had missed their most important target in the chaos. Jack pondered what to do next, seeking advice from an incapacitated comrade. Realizing the comrade couldn't respond in her current state, he ordered the PE manager to remove the tape binding her. The comrade was freed and immediately started explaining her actions, questioning why their plan was leaked. She admitted to quitting something, but denied any intention of killing anyone, expressing their disbelief at the accusation. She insisted she never agreed to such a crazy plan, emphasizing that he never mentioned anything about killing. Jack, however, reminded her that he had indeed discussed the possibility of deaths, even if not outright killing. She was shocked, calling him insane, but he admired her conviction, even if they no longer saw eye to eye. He ordered someone to tickle her until he came back, adding a bizarre twist to the tense situation. Despite the detour, he remained unfazed, stating that his plan would still prevail. He was confident that the two girls would eventually come back, and if not, he had ways to make them return. Wow, that is indeed torturous. The group was sure that the two girls would return eventually, and if they decided never to come back, he had a plan to make them. He was confident in his ability to bring the girls back, no matter what it took. The scene faded to the arcade. Yaina getting ready to end someone again. Her power level got to be over 9,000. Or just destroy the machine, that works too. They decided to switch gears and head to another arcade. Good thinking, right? Sometimes you just need a change of scenery to not have to pay for damages. MC glances at her. She looks and acts like a normal person now. Questions swirled in his mind. Would dragging her out of school change anything? She would eventually find out what happened, and that thought gnawed at him. And when she did, she would leave to fight again. He wondered if she would listen if he told her to ignore it. The uncertainty was eating him up inside. No way. He knew her too well. She wasn't the type to back down from a fight, no matter the odds. She was probably going to run headfirst into danger, not even thinking about the possibility of losing. It was just her way. Hiding behind her and watching what happens seemed like the only thing he could do. It wasn't much, but it was something. The arcade continued to buzz around him, but his mind was elsewhere, lost in thoughts of what might come next. Why was he so worried about her? Stung to admit, but he was like a mouse worried about a cat. The analogy made him chuckle inwardly, despite the situation. What was that just now? Disrespecting mice? He made a promise not to hurt any more humans, but the thought had slipped out. Get lost, he told himself, shaking his head. Something was on his mind, but he brushed it off as nothing, just meaningless stuff. The arcade lights flickered, casting shadows that danced with his thoughts. Anyway, it was refreshing to play outside during class hours. There was a thrill to it, a sense of freedom that came with breaking the rules. Thank you for bringing me here, she said, a small smile playing on her lips. The arcade was a welcome distraction, a place to forget, even if just for a little while. Oh, but our boy has no riz. As she got a message, the screen lit up with a name she didn't recognize. Jackson? Is that a nickname? She didn't think she knew this person. The name Jackson echoed in his mind. It sounded familiar, yet foreign. He couldn't quite place it, but it sent a shiver down his spine. A sense of foreboding creeping in. Ina, he called out, his voice barely audible over the arcade noise. Yeah, she responded, turning to face him. Blurring out random stuff, he asked for her opinion on quantum mechanics. She stuttered, caught off guard. Quantum, what? The question hung in the air, as out of place as it felt. It was a desperate attempt to distract her from the message, from the name Jackson. Why would Jackson message her out of the blue? The thought gnawed at him. The arcade lights seemed to dim, the sounds muffled as his mind raced. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to go terribly wrong. He's crazy, he thought, the realization dawning on him. The name Jackson wasn't just a random message. It was a sign, a warning, a premonition of the storm that was about to hit. A bad feeling gnawed at the edges of his thoughts, like an itch he couldn't scratch. He couldn't help but feel that something was about to go terribly wrong. He's crazy, he thought again, the realization settling in like a cold stone in his gut. Maybe it was time to just leave the chat room and forget about the whole thing. But something told him it wouldn't be that easy. Just as he was about to make his exit, a phone was thrust into her hands. She barely had time to register the sudden weight before she heard a cheerful voice thanking her. She looked down at the phone, confusion written all over her face. Hadn't she just gotten a message? The person in front of her seemed to be asking if she'd tried something before, but she couldn't quite make sense of it. Her mind was still stuck on the message. He managed to get out a single word, but it was clear that it wasn't what he meant to say. The confusion and frustration were building up inside him, threatening to boil over. He could feel being dunked on, so frantically changed. He tried again, but this time to the claw machine. Despite her confusion, she found herself agreeing. There was something about the person in front of her that made her feel like everything would be fun, even if she didn't quite understand what was going on. She wasn't sure what she was getting herself into, but for some reason, she didn't mind. But it was different this time. It was filled with possibilities and unspoken promises. For now, he was content to just stand there, lost in the moment. LeBron and Michael Jordan? The person in front of him was Jae Im-soo, a junior at Muscle High and the 37th generation of the Gimcheon Jae family. The other was Ma Jo-dun, a senior at the same school and the 56th generation of the Seogwipo Ma family. Who tipped the ball for them? They're having a full one-on-one right behind them, crazy. Whoever made this manhwa is a genius. Look at the background. Low-key been focused on the basketball. Yaina looks, and she sees this insane game that's been going on. With only 2 seconds left. That's definitely Michael Jordan. Smooth dunk. Back to this romantic moment that I looked past. MC just pulled a lint out of her hair. Then they awkwardly looked away. End to the game.
Michael's signature gesture.
Look at his milk dud head. The sign of the arcade owner, Dupal Guac, greeted him. He must be a hater. To outside with a beautiful sunset. MC asked if she had fun today, and she responded with an enthusiastic affirmation. She was asked which way her home was, and she pointed it out, mentioning it was about 2 bus stops away. The question of whether she took the bus came up, and she jokingly replied that she would do a long jump instead, leaving him confused. She turned to him, asked what about him. He has absolutely no riz. She clarified that she wasn't asking about that. She then asked if he was hiding something from her. Pause followed. A laugh broke the silence as he denied hiding anything, and she responded with a hint of skepticism, saying she believed him. Is that easily? She explained that she asked because he looked different today, usually appearing a bit lost and confused. The comment about being lost struck a chord. But today felt different, as if something had changed within him. And there was something more, something unspoken that hung between them. She hinted at things he hadn't done before. The weight of the conversation settling between them. He insisted that he didn't do anything out of the ordinary. She pressed further, suggesting that maybe it was because she did something out of the ordinary, ending with a laugh and an apology for often making mistakes. Gaslighting at its finest. The conversation seemed to have reached a natural end. Past the controller bro. He broke a lot of rules. He suggested they go home, mentioning it was almost time for dinner. She agreed, suggesting they part ways there, and he responded with a warm farewell, wishing her a safe journey home. She agreed, suggesting they part ways there, and he responded with a warm farewell, wishing her a safe journey home. As they parted ways. A pause. She pressed further, asking if he was sure everything was okay, the concern evident in her voice. The protagonist responded with a hint of defensiveness, saying of course, but the doubt was still there, lingering between them. She didn't press any further. And like Goku, she flew out of there. A voice noted that the two of them looked really close now. The voice mentioned that they were hoping there would be a chance for them. She then asked if he didn't go to the auditorium because they got every food in the store. With a playful smirk, he then shifted the conversation, asking how school was going at the moment, clearly hinting at something more beneath the surface. The response was grim. Everyone was locked up and forced to study, with only a few student council leaders patrolling the halls. It seemed like the school had turned into a prison overnight. He nods. Suddenly, a familiar face appeared, surprising him. It was Siru, who had seemingly come out of nowhere, or rather out of a box in the neighborhood. Questions flew around, asking if Siru was there to help, but it turned out they were just there for the spectacle, finding the situation entertaining. The conversation then shifted to Ina, questioning the decision to send her home, hinting at the challenges that lay ahead. It was clear that even with Ina, the task would be difficult, and rumors of the last attempt being tough only added to the tension. Thinking of a response. He then declared that he didn't want to make her fight anymore, a hint of resolve in his voice. A laugh escaped, but it was clear that the situation was far from funny. The question of why it was okay for him to fight lingered in the air. Tensions flared as memories of past betrayals surfaced, with accusations of attempted murder and enslavement thrown into the mix. The conversation seemed to reach a stalemate. She looks. The people look. Even the panther. Finally, breaking the silence, he suggested they head to the school, the weight of their unresolved issues still heavy between them. It was time to move forward. A new path. A new beginning. Even Animal Hlep. It would take them all to defeat that crazy bastard Jack. A bird fluttering. It snitches to Jack. Whispers of Sung Hyun acting alone, without his usual entourage, had spread like wildfire. It was unexpected, to say the least. Literally. Jack might be out of his mind, but the truth was far more complex. The student president had always been a figure of power, but lately, something seemed different. This school's student president hated authority, a paradox that baffled many. Despite his position, he rebelled against the very concept of control. Rumors had it that Jackson had stashed an enormous amount of weapons on the school site. It was the kind of thing that made you do a double take. At this point, he could supposedly overpower everyone and make them study until they dropped. It sounded like something out of a bad action movie. Amidst the tension, a suggestion hung in the air. Why not make peace? It seemed like the logical thing to do. But it was too late. The situation had escalated beyond simple resolutions. A huge explosion. The smoke blowing through. A young muttered that it was getting spicy. Her voice rang out, asking if the turrets were ready. The response was a resounding yes. The command to fire was given, a word that sealed the fate of the moment. It was chaos, pure and simple. Jack shouted that the weapon only worked in a country town, a statement that seemed out of place and confusing. He muttered that it was a joke, but no one was laughing. The mention of an infinity shield only added to the confusion. It was like something out of a sci-fi movie, not a school setting. The question of why it was in the school hung in the air, unanswered and unsettling. The location was Gangnam-gu, Seoul, a place known for its bustling streets and high-end shops. It was the last place you'd expect such chaos. The mention of Toon HQ only added to the mystery. What did a cartoon headquarters have to do with any of this? A simple sound escaped someone's lips, a mix of surprise and confusion. It summed up the feelings of everyone present. Did they just nuke? Jack admitting that he felt like he was in big trouble. As the weight of his predicament settled in, a young voice cut through the tension, urging everyone to stay focused and not get distracted. She notices something. That's pretty smooth. Suddenly, she is hit and flies back. She turns her gaze. And then is sent flying to Narnia. Jack commending someone on a nice assist. Another huge explosion, this time in the air. A shocked exclamation rang out, echoing the disbelief and fear that gripped. MC acknowledged the situation with a mix of resignation and admiration, calling out a name in a tone that suggested finality. MC declared he had no other choice, vowing to remember the fighting spirit shown.
Eripe.
A young asking if MC really wanted to die, followed by a sorrowful apology. She urging him to stop fooling around and do something. Despite the urgency, a sense of helplessness permeated the room, with him lamenting that even if he wanted to act, everyone was getting knocked out. The blame game started with her pointing out that the person who led them there needed to come up with a solution. The pressure mounted as the group struggled to find a way out of their dire situation. A voice noted the group's struggle, hinting at a glimmer of recognition and realization. The tension eased slightly as someone began to identify the group. A moment of levity broke through the tension as MC jokingly referred to the group as the crazy basketball players from the arcade, lightening the mood slightly. Top tier. A voice of reason cut through the banter, reminding everyone never to say never, as if offering a glimmer of hope. Jordan continued, suggesting that limits and fears were often just illusions, nothing but figments of the imagination. A proposal was made, offering to take him to the student president in exchange for a favor, catching everyone off guard. The offer was met with a mix of surprise and curiosity, as the details of the deal began to unfold. The request was made, asking for the number of basketball courts to be increased to 15, leaving MC stunned. Jack was left in a state of shock, processing the unexpected turn of events. Concern shifted the mood once more as he expressed worry about Sung-hyun getting injured, ordering someone to bring him to him. The urgency in the voice was clear, a sense of protectiveness and responsibility driving the command. Confusion arose as he questioned the mention of PE, unsure of what was being referred to. A young coming in with the clutch, and whipped that bald head-ass dude. She grabbed her tombstone, leaped into the air, and smashed the tombstone on the bald head-ass dude. But the bald head dude blocked with his finger. A dismissive scoff echoed, hinting at the insaneness. Jack grumbled again, clearly frustrated, as if the situation was all too familiar and troublesome. With a sudden shift, he declared a change in tactics, as if flipping a switch to take manual control. Dude really got a turret at a school. The atmosphere shifted once more, the basketball players dodging the bullets. The group exchanged MC like he's a basketball. Suddenly, a voice rang out, calling for a risky move, a jumper shot that would test their limits and luck. The plan was set, the broken window their target, their one and only chance to make things right. With a deep breath, he made his move, throwing with all his might. These dudes are units. But luck wasn't on his side, the throw falling short, his hopes seemingly dashed against the cold, hard reality. Yet, despite the dire situation, he looked surprisingly calm, almost as if he had a trick up his sleeve. His confusion growing as he seemed unfazed by the apparent failure. Then it dawned on him it wasn't a shot at all, but a clever pass, a move that just might save the day. MC held his breath, watching as he is shoved into the window. He needs some milk for that. He cried out, wondering if he was still alive. A whisper of luck was sent his way. Jack watching in awe as he landed safely inside. But MC relief was short-lived, a new challenge presenting itself, a daunting climb that would test his resolve. His thoughts echoed in his mind, questioning if he had the strength, the courage to make it up there. He tried greeting her. But she was not hearing shit. The mic voice warned, revealing a hidden danger, a brainwave manipulation wig that was controlling her. The solution seemed simple, yet daunting, a wig that needed to be removed, a task easier said than done. The voice taunted, hinting at the impossibility of the task, the wig's power seemingly insurmountable. Sulji was now under the control of a brainwave manipulation wig created by the student council, making any verbal attempts futile. The voice confirmed that the information was indeed given intentionally, hinting at a deeper plan. The voice further mocked, stating that even without the wig, laying a finger on her would be impossible, adding to the growing frustration. With a readied punch, MC narrowly dodged. The voice mused that the wig's power wasn't as strong as expected, pondering if it was because it was the first time controlling her. MC's sudden plea for conversation emerged, suggesting a resolution through dialogue rather than force. The voice dismissed the idea of conversation, reinforcing the predatory nature of the situation. The voice coldly remarked that predators don't chat with their prey, sending a chill down the spine. A sudden shriek echoed, the tension reaching a breaking point as the confrontation escalated. The voice acknowledged the skill in dodging attacks, questioning if that was the secret to his survival thus far. The realization hit that one punch could be fatal, making any approach seem impossible and dangerous. How can you not see something pink on the ground? The hinting at a realization. A sudden cry of determination echoed, the voice seizing the moment as a chance to strike, the tension reaching a fever pitch. The confrontation paused, as MC hit away. The focus shifted to Sunghyun's perception of Young Won, particularly noting Young Won's distinctive hair roll. With a sudden burst of energy, he exclaimed, hinting at a new strategy or weapon being deployed. A fierce command to die echoed, the confrontation reaching a critical point as the battle intensified. MC just loses so much aura points every day. He should have just stayed hidden. Yeah, definitely should have stayed hidden. A voice taunted, asking if running away was still the plan, hinting at the futility of escape as the hamster master made an appearance. The hamster emphasized that running away wouldn't solve anything, stressing the importance of facing obstacles head-on. A sudden command echoed, urging to stop her. At least the hamster's not a coward. Cute hamster, hopefully the creator has a heart. The confrontation paused, as she let the hamster go. I know what you was thinking too. She watched as the hamster went in. Suddenly, a voice cut through the silence, laced with confusion and a hint of panic. He had lost connection, his vision going dark for a moment. Had they lost their grip on the situation? I'll give MC some aura back. The hamster, of all creatures, seemed to have a point. Running away wouldn't solve anything. It was a hard truth to swallow, but it resonated deeply. A plan had formed during the brief respite the hamster had provided. It was a gamble, a long shot, but it was something. The question was, would it work? The uncertainty gnawed at him, but he knew he had to try. The moment of truth had arrived. The plan was set in motion, the pieces falling into place. A voice rang out, laced with disbelief and a hint of accusation. Why had he crawled back out after making such an effort to hide? Had he given up? A question formed on his lips, a desperate plea. Would his lives be spared if he surrendered? A laugh echoed through the air, manic and unrestrained. Jack, who had been standing tall now, seemed to be losing his grip on reality. He had never said he was going to kill anyone, his intentions twisted and unclear. The truth came out, chilling and final. He simply wanted to study together. Forever. This was not a request, but a demand. A twisted desire that sent shivers down everyone's spines. The reality of his predicament sank in. MC laced with disbelief and a hint of hysteria. He was crazy. Suddenly, a bright light flared, blinding the controlled chick. A voice rang out, frustrated and accusatory. He was just wasting time, the Jack declared, his patience wearing thin. A question hung in the air, laced with curiosity and a hint of accusation. Had he never had a cat? Cats, he declared, went crazy for light. A soft, almost inaudible sound echoed through the air. The long, straight hair was a perfect cat toy, he declared. The cat vibrated with energy, its excitement palpable. It was 200% excited, he declared. She just grabbed a panther's attack. A voice rang out, laced with disbelief and a hint of challenge. Did he really think this would change anything? It had surprised him a bit, he admitted. But MC with the quickness. Was it over? But a crack through the window. Suddenly, something busted through the window. A sound of realization, of dawning comprehension. The sight was almost too much to comprehend, his mind struggling to process the impossible. MC rang out, laced with disbelief and a hint of awe. Was this computer graphics? He had wanted to use this function, he admitted, but only if it was absolutely necessary. Jack finally broke the silence, revealing the grim reality of the situation. Repairing the school would cost a fortune. The room erupted in disbelief. MC shouted, calling him insane, demanding he release everyone immediately. Jack shot back, questioning if he wanted to keep going to school with crazy, muscular monsters and deal with threatening love confessions multiple times a day. The reality of the situation was too much to handle. Jack continued, stating that he was just a normal student, trying to make sense of the chaos around him. Jack asked if MC wanted to join a group called 171 OS gave him one chance, asking if he wanted to join the UET. He was promised that if he joined, he would be spared. The weight of the decision pressing down on them. Outside to the battlefield. The sound of fighting.
En explosion au cure.
A young with her whip. Suddenly, the PE teacher somehow still moving. She was shocked to realize that despite the chaos, he had taken no damage at all. It was unbelievable. She was trying to process what had just happened. She couldn't help but feel inadequate, wondering if she was no match for the challenges ahead. They were left pondering what they should do next, the weight of the decision pressing down on them. News of an explosion in a high school near Muscle broke out, adding to the chaos and uncertainty of the situation. With a devastating punch. The weight of the situation pressed down, and a sense of helplessness washed over. Amidst the turmoil, a moment of hesitation set in, the question lingering in the air, what should be done next? A young launches her whip. The bald PE teacher grabs it. He pulls her in and punches the shit out of her. A desperate plea followed, the realization dawning that if this force wasn't stopped now, history was doomed to repeat itself in a tragic cycle. The urgency grew, the past and present colliding in a desperate race against time. 3 years ago, the story began to unfold. The setting shifted to Gyeongju, a place where the past and present seemed to intertwine, holding the secrets of what had transpired. The narrative deepened, layers of the past being peeled back to reveal the truth that lay beneath. A sense of anticipation built, the story of a prodigy beginning to take shape, a tale of talent and promise. The stage was set for a young violinist, Ah-young Choi, a name that would soon be known nationwide, her talent undeniable and her future bright. Ah-young Choi, a 14-year-old violin prodigy, stood in the spotlight, her talent recognized and celebrated, a star on the rise. Reflecting on her journey, she remembered a time when she was young and full of promise, her violin skills surpassing even the most seasoned pianists. But just as her star was rising, a new challenge appeared, someone who would change the course of her life forever. He was different, a force to be reckoned with, his presence alone shifting the dynamics of her world. The narrative took a turn, the setting shifting to Incheon Bupyeongdong, a place where new challenges and adventures awaited. The journey continued, leading to Koreatown, a bustling hub of culture and life, where new experiences and encounters shaped her path. Amidst the hustle and bustle, a heartfelt promise was made, a vow to live a long and happy life, a beacon of hope in the midst of uncertainty. But life had its twists, and a special note revealed the struggles and sacrifices made along the way, a reminder of the journey's challenges. The story took a darker turn, a cry of betrayal echoing through the air, the pain of being let down cutting deep. It was a moment that changed everything, a turning point that led her down a different path, one that would ultimately lead her to become part of a biker gang. The weight of the past pressed down as Ms. Seo watched Ah-young crash into her car. The resolve to flatten any obstacle with a hammer. You know that car is gone. The narrative paused, another crash into the car. A sudden call echoed through the air. But duty called, an emergency at school pulling her away. With a sense of urgency, she rushed off, the promise to return lingering in the air. As she vanished from sight, the weight of her promise hung in the air, a silent vow that something crazy was on the horizon. Little did anyone know, chaos was about to erupt in the most unexpected of places. The quiet neighborhood, usually a picture of serenity, was about to be shaken to its core. Rumors of an explosion at school spread like wildfire, leaving everyone in shock. This peaceful neighborhood was about to witness something unprecedented. Amidst the chaos, a voice rang out, questioning if she was on her way to the high school basketball arena. The Asian boy, seemingly out of nowhere, found himself in a fight against the student council president. The odds were stacked against him, but he stood his ground. A realization dawned on them as they noticed their Asian too, sparking a mix of surprise and concern. Sung-hyun, known for his prowess, was at the center of the storm. A new plan began to form in the minds of those involved. Back to MC, something had to be done, and fast. A glimmer of hope appeared as he recalled the mint chocolate solution stolen from the lab. Could be the key to turning the tide. The idea of escaping and freeing the other students sparked a debate. The risks were high, but the potential reward was too great to ignore. However, the plan was quickly shut down. Jack had learned from past mistakes and was prepared for such a move this time. He intended to erase the students' identities and turn them into studying machines. The revelation was met with shock and disbelief. Jack's logic was twisted. Joining the council or becoming a mindless studying machine were the only options presented. The ultimatum was clear, and the pressure was on. The decision would shape the future of everyone involved. Realizing the need to buy time, the plan shifted to catching him off guard. The battle of wits had begun. A job offer was presented with a salary and description that seemed too good to be true. The perks offered were less than stellar, with coffee, instant rice, and mattresses in the break room. It was a far cry from a dream job. The company was revealed to be terrible, with conditions that no one in their right mind would accept. The offer was swiftly declined. Jack's frustration boiled over, accusing the generation of being entitled. The interview had clearly not gone well. The failed interview was a setback, but the battle was far from over. Regret filled the air as the realization of provoking him set in. The anger had been justified, but the consequences were severe. Despite the setback, hope remained. Jack was not using their full power, leaving an opening for a potential victory. The reason behind his restraint became clear. He wanted a hostage, and the plan began to form in response. Using the enemy's hesitation to his advantage, the plan was set into motion. With a strategic attack and the help of Siru, the battle reached its climax. MC's frustration boiled over as the plan unfolded. Cats aren't loyal. The realization set in. The assistant was not very helpful. Jack's frustration was clear. As the tension rose, the plan began to take shape. The enemy was on the back foot, and the momentum had shifted. With everything sorted out, the focus shifted to the battle at hand. The protagonist was on the ropes, and the plan was not working. MC was caged in. The realization set in. The job offer was off the table. It wasn't about the points or the score, but something much bigger. The focus was clear. It was never about personal gain or racking up numbers. A leader stood among them, ready to guide with everything they had. The battle might have been far from over, but the spirit to fight on was stronger than ever. The stage was set, and Yaina ready to kick some ass. Damn, that must be a satisfying feeling. The bald man fly through the window. Then, a voice cut through the tension, calling out a name with a mix of surprise and accusation. Sunghyun, it seemed, had some explaining to do. Consideration was the last thing on anyone's mind now. A simple call could have changed everything, but it was too late for what-ifs now. Surprise flickered across his face as Ina made her presence known. The timing was unexpected, and the advantage seemed to shift with it. The game had changed, and she was scrambling to catch up. But in the end, the details didn't matter. The pieces were in motion, and the only thing left to do was see it through. With the pieces in motion, the tension hung in the air. But in the end, it didn't matter. The only thing left to do was see it through. Yaina's destructive punch destroyed the robotic arm. And another punch. The struggle was intense, more difficult than he had anticipated. This was harder than thought. The challenge was greater, the obstacles more formidable. But there was no turning back now. The battle raged on, and a torrent turned on. The fight was a blur, a chaotic mix of speed and strength. Questions raced through the mind. Was she really human? The doubt was there, lingering, but there was no time to dwell on it. Anyway, the fight continued, the Yaina destroying anything in sight. It had finally come to this. The moment of truth, the climax of the battle. What could be done here? Cheer her on. The answer was elusive, but the fight continued. MC wants to cross-dress low-key. It was hard to keep up, hard to see how she was even fighting. Questions raced through the mind. Was she really human? Out of nowhere, threads wrapped around her. And then the trapdoor underneath her opened. Then shut. Jack sighed. The cost was high, weapons lost, resources drained. It was insane, but there was no turning back now. Half of the remaining power was used to brainwash, or rather, to make her study. The line was blurred, the methods extreme, but the goal was clear. The place was strange, unfamiliar. It was hard to make sense of it all. What was this place? The question echoed in her mind. A plea for clarity amidst the chaos. What the heck was going on? The place was strange, unfamiliar. Who was that bald man trying to look sexy? The question was there, lingering, but there was no time to dwell on it. She was a teacher, and she was not a man. The confusion at an all-time high. Jack echoed. Ina, can you hear me? This is a study room made just for you. Do you like it? The voice echoed in the mind. You're probably too distracted to hear me. All right, she's taken care of. The remaining 1% was all that was left. A sudden realization struck. This power, this intense struggle, could be used for something more. A cry of frustration echoed through the air. Accusations flew, tempers flaring as MC lashed out, calling Jack a crazy pervert. A warning followed, cautioning against such reckless attacks. Confusion reigned as he questioned the outburst, wondering if he had finally lost his mind. Suddenly, an automated voice cut through the chaos, announcing the activation of emergency power. A countdown began, 10 minutes to restore power or face the consequences. In the midst of the turmoil, a confused murmur escaped Jack's lips, a mix of surprise and bewilderment. A moment of clarity hit, the need to use his brain and think things through becoming apparent. Questions swirled in his mind, what to do next, how to proceed. Then, a sudden pause, a thought occurring to him. Could this be the solution he was looking for, the key to turning the tide? A voice cut through the tension, advising surrender to the student council before someone else made a move. It was the only way to avoid severe consequences. A plan formed to play the role of a hostage for the student council, to catch their opponent off guard. There was no stopping the student council anyway, they would get what they wanted in the end. A resolve hardened, the need to find a way to live, even if it meant standing alone, becoming clear. Frustration boiled over as it became clear that their words had fallen on deaf ears, her advice ignored. How could he possibly do what was being asked of him, betray someone he cared about so deeply? A plan began to form, a way to keep the power hidden, to wait until the right moment to use it. That way, it would be harder for his opponent to take action to counter his moves. A map appeared, a possible solution to their predicament, a way to outmaneuver his foe. But what did it all mean? Where did it point to? The confusion was overwhelming, the need for answers pressing. Why was he willing to go so far, to risk so much? The truth was hard to swallow, the realization that he had never really liked her. Back to the present. A beep echoed through the air, a signal, a sign. This was what it had all been leading to, the moment of truth. Another beep followed, the countdown continuing, the pressure mounting. The plan was simple, cut off the power and Jack would be helpless, unable to attack. The circuits were hidden, a secret known only to a few, a way to ensure that no one could interfere. A warning echoed, a reminder that betrayal was always a possibility, that trust was a fragile thing. But none of that mattered now. The switch had been turned off, the countdown begun. 10 minutes to restore power, to set things right. A challenge hung in the air, a question of whether it could be done, whether victory was still possible. A mysterious object was found near the switch, something that could turn the tide. It was exactly what he needed. The object, seemingly insignificant, held the potential to change everything. But just as hope flickered, frustration exploded. The son of a... The exclamation echoed, raw and unfiltered. The taunt came swift and sharp, cutting through the tension. Is that all you have got? You are pathetic. The words stung, fueling the fire of determination. Insults flew, each one more biting than the last. Have fun having just coffee and rice for the rest of your life. How dare you insult the company? The tension reached its peak. MC narrowly dodges. Amidst the chaos, confusion set in. I just do not get it. Why are you willing to go that far? The accusation cut deep. You never liked her anyway, right? The words struck a chord, forcing a painful introspection. The truth hit hard. She is right. Why am I doing this for her? The realization was a bitter pill to swallow, a moment of clarity amidst the turmoil. Reflection took hold. I do not know when it started. The journey of self-discovery began, a path fraught with uncertainty. The air was thick with unspoken thoughts and unresolved emotions. Doubt crept in. I keep questioning myself. But even after rolling back and forth, I cannot deny it. The internal struggle was real, a battle of the heart and mind. Pause, a leg grabbed. It seems like, the thought trailed off, the beginning of a realization that could change everything. Yaina. MC might just be in love with Yaina. As he slowly woke up, he was hung upside down, turrets aimed at him. Jack walked up to him. The demand cut through. Give me the key. The words were a challenge, a final test of wills. The air was thick with anticipation, the moment hanging in the balance. The key, a symbol of power and control, was the final piece of the puzzle. The moment felt like it stretched on forever. The key, a symbol of power and control, was the final piece of the puzzle, and Jack knew it. The request was firm, leaving no room for negotiation. But the response was swift and defiant. A simple refusal, laced with a hint of sarcasm, hung in the air. The tension escalated as the question was repeated, this time with a menacing tone. Laughter echoed, sending a chill down the spine. A pause, heavy with unspoken threats, filled the room. Confusion and panic set in as the key seemed to have vanished. The question of its whereabouts echoed, laced with desperation. A revelation came, the key was hidden away, a precaution taken during the escape. A plea was made, a suggestion to give up and let everyone go. Silence fell once more. A compliment was given, a backhanded one at that. The intention was clear, a hint of something more sinister to come. An explanation followed, a feather was revealed, its purpose seemingly innocent, yet the tone suggested otherwise. Panic set in as the true purpose of the feather was questioned. The protagonist was frantic, the realization dawning that this was no ordinary feather. A reassurance was given, a twisted one. The feather was just a show, but the real torture instruments were yet to come. The real torture instruments were revealed, a chill running down the spine at the mere mention of them. Fear and pain followed, a scream echoing through the room. The torture had begun, the key still hidden away. Pleas for mercy fell on deaf ears, laughter echoing in response. The torture continued, the key still out of reach. A brief respite. Taunts and jeers followed, the pain seemingly unbearable. The key was forgotten, the focus now on survival. He really turned MC into a girl. A glimmer of hope, a reminder that this too shall pass. The key was still hidden, the location known only to him. A revelation, the soul collector, a guardian angel of the sexless. A promise was made, a new leaf to be turned. Pleas for mercy fell on deaf ears, the torture continuing unabated. A question was asked, the answer seemingly irrelevant. A command was given, the focus now on the pain. A revelation, the location of the key finally revealed. The classroom, the back door, the key hidden away. Weak MC. Promise was made, a lie detected. This dude is creepy as hell. With the pain still lingering, Jack echoed, mocking and cold, comparing MC to a moss caught in a trap. But then, a softer tone followed, assuring that the pain wouldn't last forever. The promise and the lie intertwined, leaving an unsettling calm. A sudden question broke the silence, challenging the perception of a mouse's intelligence. It was as if the very essence of the creature was being questioned. The title, the Hamster Master, was declared with a mix of pride and desperation, as if claiming a role that carried both power and burden. A vow was recalled, a promise not to hurt humans, but the mouse found themselves cornered, with no choice but to break that vow. Samurai Mouse would be a good series. A sudden realization struck, a sense of urgency filling the air. All available resources were being used, and there was nothing left to spare. The desperation grew, Jack acknowledging that he had no choice but to resort to a method he had hoped to avoid. He froze some substances. A discovery was made, the realization dawning that what the mouse was dealing with was compressed pine sawdust. The severity of the situation became clear. Pine sawdust was unsuitable for hamsters, and the compressed variety was even more dangerous, potentially fatal. The best choice for hamsters was aspen sawdust without compression, but it seemed like it was too late for that. The end appeared near. The situation was critical and time was running out. A final plea was made, the mouse leaving the rest to the young human. A sudden burst of small sword filled the scene, a last-ditch effort to change the course of events. The effort was acknowledged, a final attempt to make things right. It was a call for attention, a plea for recognition. MC was broken free. Frustration was evident as time ran out. The emergency power had been exhausted, leaving him with no options left. Confusion set in as the reality of the situation became clear. The power was gone, and the outcome was uncertain. With quickness, MC smashed Jack's ugly face in. A moment of reflection passed, the realization of a near transformation. The protagonist had almost become a girl. That's not enough, more hits for Jack. He really got knocked out in one punch. A hand grabs the window. A young late to the party. A moment of silence passed. Instructions were given, a task to free the kids in the auditorium. Awkward. A question was asked, probing the MC's intentions. The response was cryptic, leaving more questions than answers. An offer was made, a vet's number extended as a lifeline. The offer hung in the air, a lifeline extended in a moment of desperation. Why'd he come? His voice cut through the tension, questioning the resolve to proceed. With a resigned sigh, the response came, tinged with a mix of frustration and helplessness. If that was how he felt, what else could be done? To the audiovisual room. MC aggressively opens the door. A sense of finality crept in, the realization that perhaps she's okay. The name Sung-hyun echoed softly, almost a whisper. Even if he tried, it seemed like there was no way to alter the course of events. The reality of the situation was sinking in, and it was not easy to bear. The truth was hard to admit, but it was becoming impossible to ignore. The admission was painful, a truth that had been buried deep. It was something that had been avoided for so long, but now it was out in the open. Admitting it was like opening a floodgate of emotions. It was a truth that cut deep, exposing vulnerabilities that had been carefully hidden. It made him feel pathetic, the realization that he had been hiding behind someone else, always waiting for them to make the first move. The truth was hard to swallow, but it was time to face it. It was a moment of raw honesty, a truth that had been buried for too long. It was a moment of vulnerability, a truth that had been hidden for too long. Our boy finally getting some riz. In a soft, almost hesitant voice, the words "I like you" were spoken. It was a confession that had been buried deep, a truth that had been hidden for too long. Tears filled her eyes. The words hung in the air, a promise and a plea all at once. "From now on, come save me," he said. It was a cry for help, a plea for support in a time of need. The words echoed, a plea for help and a promise of support. It was a moment of vulnerability, a raw honesty that had been laid bare. MC evolving into a man. A simple phrase, yet it carried the weight of 1,000 unspoken words. The words hung in the air, a promise, a vow. Promise to be there, to save, to protect. A question was posed, a request for companionship. It was an invitation, a plea for togetherness in the face of whatever lay ahead. The chains break. Suddenly, a scream pierced the quiet, a raw, unfiltered burst of emotion. It was a release, a cry of existence, of being alive. The declaration that followed was filled with relief, with the joy of being alive. It was a realization, a moment of pure, unadulterated happiness. But then, a pause, a moment of reflection. It was filled with understanding, with the warmth of shared emotions. A single word, a simple utterance, but it carried the weight of 1,000 unspoken thoughts. It was a moment of realization, of understanding. It was a quiet that spoke volumes, a pause that was filled with potential. The quiet lingered, a moment of reflection. A murmur of confusion, a question unspoken. It was a moment of surprise, of disbelief, the kind of reaction that comes when the unexpected is laid bare. Pause, a moment of hesitation. Then a question, a plea for understanding. It was a request for clarification, for reassurance. The question was posed, a request for confirmation. The response was immediate, a declaration of intent. It was a confession, a moment of pure, unfiltered emotion.
O premis, o vow, o pledge.
An apology, a moment of reflection. It was a realization and understanding, the kind of moment that comes when the heart speaks louder than the mind. It was filled with understanding, with the warmth of shared emotions. The response was soft, a whisper of acceptance. It was a moment of surrender, of giving in to the emotions that had been laid bare. A promise, a vow, a pledge for the future. MC once again lost his aura. Question, a moment of concern. It was a plea for understanding, for clarity in the face of the unexpected. A murmur of confusion, a question unspoken. Pause, a moment of reflection. Then, an explanation, a confession of sorts. It was a moment of vulnerability, of raw honesty. But it was comfortable now. It was a pause that was filled with potential and promise, with the warmth of shared emotions. A reassurance, a promise for the future. It was a moment of understanding, of shared emotions. The kind of moment that comes when two souls connect, when they find solace in each other. They are very awkward. There was a sense of anticipation in the air. With a sudden burst of energy, Ah-young broke the silence, rallying the group with an enthusiastic call to action. It was time to move on to whatever adventure awaited them next. But not everyone was on the same page, as a confused MC questioned why there was laughter, clearly missing the memo on the sudden change in mood. The group seemed to be at a loss for what to do next, with MC wondering aloud about what people usually do when they first go out. Yaina chimed in, suggesting that anything would be fine, but it only highlighted the indecision in the air. The uncertainty continued as MC admitted they didn't know what to do. The pause stretched on, the group still unsure of their next move, but the air was filled with the potential of something fun just around the corner. Finally, a suggestion broke through the indecision: mint chocolate ice cream with pineapples. It was such a specific and random idea that it somehow made perfect sense in the moment. But just as the group seemed to settle on a plan, a voice cut through the air, questioning whether this was really the end of their adventure. The laughter that followed felt a little uneasy, as if something was still unresolved. The laughter grew louder, more insistent, and it was clear that not everyone was ready to move on just yet. The tension seemed to break as he jokingly called out a name, the mood shifting once again as the group navigated their next steps. Jackson Kim had been sent away to study in a graduate program in philosophy. It was a long-term commitment, one that would keep him busy for at least 20 years. What? He had wanted to study so badly, so it was assumed he must be happy. But a note revealed his true feelings, pleading to graduate soon. Despite this, there was hope for his future as a professor of philosophy. Back with the group, the conversation shifted to a more personal topic, whether or not to tell others about their dating status. Yaina joked about not knowing he had friends to tell, which sparked a playful back and forth. The mood lightened, but the question still stood. She decided that telling one person, her best friend, would be a good start. It would be a secret, but not really just something to share with someone she trusted. But there was one person they had to tell for sure, young one, the best friend. It was only right that she knew first. They agreed that she could be trusted, so it should be fine. The decision was made, and the weight of the secret felt a little lighter. But before they could share the news, someone blurted out that MC and Ina were dating, only to be met with disbelief and accusations of lying. The reaction was intense, with exaggerated threats and playful violence thrown around. It was clear that this news was a big deal, even if it was met with humor. Amidst the chaos, a voice remarked that his students were always full of energy. It was a simple observation, but it grounded the moment, reminding everyone of the lively atmosphere he was in. The group took a moment to breathe, the excitement still palpable but the initial shock wearing off. He called out a playful taunt, followed by laughter, as if to release some of the built-up tension from the revelation. A voice teased that this was why they got terrible grades, bringing the focus back to their everyday lives and the consequences of their antics. As the dust settled, it seemed like everyone was back to normal, and there was a sense of relief in the air. Whatever had happened, they had come out of it together. The moment of reflection was brief, but it was enough to remind them that despite the chaos, he was glad to have each other. A voice called to Sung-hyun. Ina had something to give him, a small but significant gesture that hinted at the bonds between them all. What kind of cringe shit is this? There was a pause, a breath of anticipation. But for now, wow, they deserve each other. His voice broke the silence, asking if a message could be passed along to Ina, as if the universe itself was nudging things into motion. The air seemed to still, a beat of hesitation before whatever came next. Then, like a storm rolling in, whispers of doubt began to swirl, rumors that cut deep, suggesting feelings had faded, that someone else might have caught his eye. The words hung heavy, each one a dagger twisting in the quiet space between them. And then came the bombshell: Hyene was thinking of quitting school, all just to get away. The weight of it all crashed down like a bad breakup playlist on repeat. Maybe there was already someone new, someone else stealing his attention, someone like Paejeon. A gasp cut through the tension. Ina was skipping class, and suddenly, everything felt like it was spiraling out of control. The weight of the moment pressed down, suffocating, as if the world had tilted on its axis. Questions swirled: was she losing it? Had the pressure finally cracked her? But there was no time to dwell. Someone had to step in, had to bring her back before things went too far. A plea hung in the air: let me talk to her. Let me bring her back. And for once, trust was given, fragile but real. The name Paejeon echoed again, a cooing sound that seemed to mock the chaos unfolding. And he rode off on the pigeon. Then his voice cut through the tension. Ina, why? The question hung there, raw and unanswered. Pleas followed, desperate and trembling. But the storm was already in motion, and stopping it wouldn't be easy. A beat of yelling. He called out, hey, Mac, as if trying to anchor the chaos. And then, a whisper of hope. The girl he'd been waiting for was on her way, as if fate itself was stepping in to tilt the scales. The air hummed with anticipation, the kind that made hearts race and palms sweat. What the fuck is that? And then, in what felt like both an eternity and a blink, it was graduation day at Muscle High School. Time had flown by, yet the weight of the moment made it feel like a lifetime had passed. For some, this day marked an end, a closing chapter on their school days. But for others, it was just the beginning, a fresh start waiting to unfold. Among them was Sung-hyun Ji, 19 years old, known as the Plant Slayer, a title that carried more weight than anyone could have imagined. He had survived to see this day, his graduation. Yet, it didn't feel real, as if he was standing on the edge of a dream, unsure if he would wake up. The future was here, but with it came a wave of uncertainty. A thought crept in, one that seemed to darken the bright day. Was the world really ready for them? Was he ready for the world? The questions lingered, unanswered, The excitement of the day couldn't quite shake off the lingering doubts. A familiar voice cut through the haze of thoughts, teasing and light. It was a friend, always ready to call out his worries. He denied it, of course, but they both knew better. A laugh echoed, bright and reassuring. It was graduation day, after all. What could possibly go wrong? Famous last words, as they say. But beneath the laughter, there was a tension, a sense that today was different. That today might be the last chance for something, a final opportunity hanging in the balance. The chance to take back something precious, something that had been lost. Sunghyun, perhaps, or maybe just a piece of herself. The most beautiful woman of the province, IP Park, 21 years old. A title that carried its own weight, its own expectations. Okay, she actually looks the part. She was a force to be reckoned with, a woman who had faced her own battles. But even she had her moments of doubt, her own insecurities. There were whispers, comments about her appearance, her choices. But she stood tall, her determination unwavering. The tension between them was palpable, a clash of wills and histories. It was a battle not just of strength, but of spirit. Words were exchanged, sharp and cutting. Accusations and defenses, each one a blow in their own right. But there was a truth to them, a reality that couldn't be ignored. A laugh, bitter and resigned. She had made sacrifices, given up parts of herself to fit into a world that didn't always understand her. She had shaved the back of her head, a symbol of her determination, her willingness to change. It was a small thing, perhaps, but it meant everything. Okay, they got me again. There was a grudging respect, an acknowledgement of her strength. It wouldn't be easy to defeat her, not now, not ever. The tension was broken, a challenge issued and accepted. It was a battle that would be remembered, a clash of titans in their own right. As the dust settled, there was a sense of finality. The battle was over, but the school destroyed. A laugh, weary and resigned. It was her 75th loss, but it didn't sting any less. Each one was a reminder of how far she had to go. A moment of silence, a question hanging in the air. IP her name a whisper, a promise, a challenge. An invitation, a simple question about pork after work. It was a small thing, perhaps, but it meant the world. A laugh, bright and grateful. It was a small victory, a moment of connection in a world that often felt disconnected. But for now, there was something else, something more pressing. An unrequited love, a longing that couldn't be ignored. It was a battle of its own, one that she was determined to win. Little did she know, the universe had a weird sense of humor and a strange twist of fate was about to unfold. Reflecting on the past, she couldn't help but think that if she had known how things would turn out, she might have made different choices, perhaps even shared a meal with him. Her thoughts were interrupted by a sudden realization, a shift in her understanding of the world around her. The world wasn't as it seemed. There were darker truths lurking beneath the surface, truths that involved humans and their relationship with other beings. A chain of pain and suffering, a cycle that needed to be broken. She felt a surge of determination, a resolve to end the suffering. With a cry of defiance, she vowed to end the cycle of pain, to fight for those who couldn't fight for themselves. For the hogs, for the innocent, she would stand and fight. Her battle cry echoed through the air, a declaration of her intent. But her journey was far from easy. In the midst of her struggle, a voice echoed, questioning her choices and her path. It was a voice that seemed to understand her plight. The voice wondered why she was struggling in such a place, questioning her decisions and her resolve. It was a moment of introspection, a pause in her battle. But she was not alone. There were others who shared her struggle, who understood her pain. They were not raised to be weak, but to stand and fight. She offered a moment of respite, a chance to eat and gather her strength. It was a coincidence, a meeting that seemed fated. They suggested a meal, a salad perhaps, a moment of normalcy in her chaotic world. She felt a sense of obligation, a need to do something. But she also felt a sense of ease, a comfort in the company of the producer. The producer's suggestion of a salad was met with surprise. It was a stark contrast to her expectations, a twist that made her laugh. But her laughter was short-lived. She remembered her mission, her resolve to end the suffering. She was coming to kill all the evil humans. Meanwhile, in Gwanak-gu, Seoul, another story was unfolding. It was a story of prestige and power, a story that would intersect with hers. Korea's most prestigious school, Serengeti University, stood tall and proud. It was a symbol of success and achievement, a beacon of hope for many. But for one individual, it was not a place of learning but a target. She had come to blow up the school, to destroy the symbol of prestige. Her reasoning was twisted but logical. If she blew up every college that ranked higher than the school she was accepted into, she would automatically become a student at the most prestigious college. With 334 colleges in Korea, she only needed to blow up 333, a task that seemed daunting but achievable. At a rate of one a day, it wouldn't even take a year. A plan was set in motion, a twisted journey to achieve her goal. In her possession was Putin's wand, passed down from one Class 3 president to the next. It was powerful enough to use at times like this, a tool to achieve her twisted ambition. With the wand in hand, she stood ready to execute her plan. But quickly she was knocked down. Someone was running late for class. It was a mundane problem, a stark contrast to the twisted plans unfolding elsewhere. In his haste, he bumped into someone. His concerned voice asked if she was okay. A moment of kindness in a world filled with chaos. Not this fucker again. It was a brief encounter, but one that would have lasting implications. The voice belonged to young one from Muscle High. But Jack didn't recognize her. It was a missed connection, a moment that could have changed everything but didn't. The late student felt a need to apologize properly. It was a sense of responsibility, a need to make things right. But little did he know, his journey was about to take a dramatic turn. As the late student stepped forward, ready to apologize, a sudden exclamation echoed through the room, catching everyone off guard. The atmosphere shifted, and all eyes turned toward the Putin wand. The tension in the room spiked as he pointed out a forgotten nuclear bomb, left carelessly behind. Another exclamation filled the room, this time laced with a mix of surprise and dread. The tension broke slightly as he recognized the professor calling. The late student felt a flicker of hope, thinking that maybe the professor could bring some order to the chaos. The professor's voice boomed through, scolding the students for the messy lab and the fine dust scattered everywhere. The late student winced, realizing the professor's anger was about to make the situation even more complicated. The professor's rant continued, now focusing on the lack of prepared food. The demands for different types of steak and the order to pick up the professor's son added to the absurdity of the situation. The late student couldn't help but feel overwhelmed by the professor's outburst. The late student stood there, processing the bizarre turn of events and wondering how to navigate this unexpected chaos. The late student took a moment to collect his thoughts, trying to make sense of the situation. He really is crazy. To the night. MC and Yaina sitting watching the nuke. He shouted about radioactive fallout, and they erupted into a mix of surprise and curiosity. Come on, MC, I still have hope in you. A small smile forming on their face. It was a sweet moment amidst the madness. They felt a sense of calm wash over them, the earlier chaos seemingly a distant memory. Yaina asking what the protagonist was thinking about. He hesitated, unsure of how to respond. He admitted that he wanted to hang out more now that they were in college. She joked about his high school grades, asking if he was planning to screw up college as well. She insisted she was joking. It was a moment of camaraderie, the earlier chaos seemingly a distant memory. He mumbled about trying to be romantic. She then called him cute, and the room filled with playful banter. His cheeks flushed with embarrassment. It was a sweet moment, the earlier chaos seemingly forgotten. The late student stood there, processing the moment. Come on, MC. She broke the silence, calling the late student cute once again. How can he not take a hint? He stood there, a small smile forming on his face. She called him cute once again. The protagonist's cheeks flushed with embarrassment, but he couldn't help but smile. He wondered what would happen next. Come on, MC, your cheek isn't the only cheek that should be red. The room was filled with a sense of warmth and camaraderie as they touched hands. MC took a deep breath, feeling a sense of calm wash over him. It was a moment of tranquility. That's a first step. Yaina stood there, feeling a sense of the moment. MC finally realizing the moment. They go in for the kiss. Peep the basketball. Jump ball. Suddenly, someone shouted, rebound. The late student's eyes widened, wondering what was about to happen next. Someone else shouted, let's go. Felt a rush of excitement, the earlier tranquility forgotten. Just as the excitement was building, a sudden shout of surprise echoed through the room. Someone had pulled off a sneaky steal, and the energy shifted instantly. The room erupted into chaos as someone shouted in disbelief. What was happening? The unexpected turn of events left everyone on edge. Amidst the commotion, who was this person? And what role did they play in this unfolding drama? Michael Jordan enjoying the moment. The Panther sizing him up. Just as suddenly as it had begun, it was over. The words "the end" echoed through the room, leaving everyone in a state of stunned silence. This was a hilarious manhwa. Hopefully you enjoyed it too.